What is up, everyone? What is up? Happy... Oh, I didn't get the chat window up here. 1 second. Happy Sunday, everybody. What's everybody got going on this weekend? It's almost All Hallows Eve. For those of you that, you know, are planning to do something with your family. Alright, let's see. Move that window over there, that over there, that over there. Gotta relaunch that. I don't know. The green site's always a little bit weird. But anyway, yeah, it's been a pretty chill weekend. Just been hanging with the dogs. I finally got one video out to the tubes. What was it? Yeah, just this afternoon. Because, I don't know, I just kind of took a break from making YouTube videos and such. And now I got one left to edit. That'll be a video about gaming on Linux. That's going to take me a little bit longer because I have so many different pieces and screenshots and cutaways and all that I have to do, because it's kind of a basics of, oh, so you're gaming on Linux, here's all the things you can do, from Steam to Heroic Launcher to Lutris, mentioning bottles, because now I've been seeing an uptick in a lot of people, not just, you know, on TikTok or the tubes or all that. People are genuinely curious about ditching Windows as a whole, because Microsoft has just been shooting themselves in the foot for quite a while. They had the, what was it? You had the Microsoft recall on Windows. You had a bunch of, you know, spyware, all that, basically, well, not spyware, but adware, more or less. And then you had, their Windows 10 is end of life right now, and a lot of people are genuinely like, I don't want to go to Windows 11. And I don't blame them, because Windows 10 was supposed to be the last Windows you ever installed. But it's kind of interesting. I'm actually seeing a lot of genuine curiosity into, hey, can I actually use Linux? And the answer is, for most average everyday people now, unless you have some specific reason, yeah, it's getting to be more and more viable. I know as far as gaming goes, the only limitation you have is kernel level anti-cheat, but that is something I would just say I'm never going to install even if I was still on Windows. Sup, Jessica? Sup, Vampire? Sup, Zakir? How's it going, guys? How's your Sundays going? Sunday? Not Sundays. We're not getting ice creams. We're gonna have some tinkering projects soon as well. I'm working on getting a MQTT server. Talking about Hellraiser, rekernel. Wait, what? Of course you use Arch. You know, it's funny that I actually called out the Arch users inside my latest Windows 10 is end of life video. And of course it was including a lot of, you know, call outs to, hey, you can actually, you know, consider Linux, and it's not nearly as bad as people think it is. You know, yeah, it's just, it's kind of interesting now, because I remember years ago when, wasn't it that Hellraisers 2 that wanted kernel access for anti-cheat? You mean Helldivers? Helldivers still doesn't have kernel level anti-cheat. Are they planning to add that? I don't think they are. Kernel level. I don't see them talking about it, but no, it doesn't look like they're doing that. Let the reinstall when Pop! OS 2 come out. You mean Pop! OS 2604? Because I know they're on 2404 right now, but the Cosmic Desktop environment is a beta, so they're kind of considering that whole LTS, the long-term support release, a beta as well. So, I may replace my Linux on my desktop when Pop! OS 2604 comes out, which will probably be the next stable, because the way it follows is every 2 years, Ubuntu releases a new LTS version, and then they release point versions every 6 months. That's why it's called, 2204, because it was released on April of 2022. And, the most recent stable was 2404, which is released on April of 2024. And then every 6 months, there's another point release. So you have like 24.10, 25.04, then you have 25.10. So, yeah. Oh, I know. We're going to get to the review on stream stuff in a little bit. I'm a Fedora kind of guy on most of my computers. The thing I don't like about Fedora is the OS itself, it's too fast-paced in terms of the release cycle, and I need stability for a lot of my workflows. I don't want to change too much, so I try to at most replace the entire OS every 2 years, because we'll be on a new LTS release, but you get 5 years of support on an LTS, so I can even push it, so I have a lot of time until I feel like changing. You have problems with their Intel Arc GPU on Arch. My bottles died every time I run it. I have not used an Intel GPU yet. What is FreeBSD? FreeBSD is another cousin in the Unix family system. So you have Mac OS X, which is a Unix-like operating system. You have Linux, which is a Unix-like operating system. And then you have the BSDs, Berkeley Software Development, Berkeley Software Development. BSDs actually came out before Linux, and it's this whole interesting history of, because they basically made a 800 hotline, which was 1-800-ITS Unix. AT&T sued them into oblivion that it actually stalled their ability to release for a few years. That honestly, if it wasn't for that legal issue in the 90s, BSDs would probably be where Linux is today. But FreeBSD is a solid operating system. There's FreeBSD, NetBSD, there's a few other BSDs, but they're in the Unix-like operating system. I actually like FreeBSD, their networking stack, a lot better than Linux. Which is why I use pfSense, which is built on FreeBSD. PF is a much better network stack than IP tables and NetFilter, which is what Linux uses. If you've ever had to manage IP tables, you know exactly what I mean. BSD should be the standard for hardware-defined software. I think BSD is a really solid approach. It's just not widely known or accepted outside of very, very technical circles, but on a server side, I really love it. I love the jails and such they have inside of there that you can segment different parts of the system. It's a very, very stable and robust operating system, but if you're used to like Linux and Mac, you can kind of, get around BSD, and it's pretty clean. Berkeley Software Distribution. Okay. That's what I thought it was. I always get the D wrong. Up some people over to Linux Mint because they didn't want to buy a new computer, and I didn't get any complaints now. Yeah. Do you know how, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, have, been doing that as well. I generally don't steer people to Linux Mint. It's not what I generally recommend. I have no issues with it, per se. But when they want a Windowsy-like OS, I kind of steer them, because Kubuntu is pretty similar with KDE. I kind of like that way of doing things. But once in a while, I hear people, put Linux Mint on. I used to use it many, many years ago. I don't know. I'm sending Windows 11 memes like, when Windows users got to use Terminal to make an offline account and Linux don't. That's the funny thing. That is the funny thing about this. There are so many people that are like, well, Linux scares me because I have to use the terminal, and then they're opening the terminal to make their Windows computer operate. That's an idea for a video I gotta get into. Thank you for that. Gotta get a note around here. Somebody hold on. I'll put it in the Discord. Make a video on how Windows users are scared of Linux often because of the terminal, but they are often using the terminal to bypass Microsoft online account and other requirements. That is the funny thing. Yeah, that is a good point. That didn't occur to me. I don't know why. It was staring me in the face. But yeah, Hans, you're totally right on the money there. It is funny because for years I've heard people like, well, you know, I don't want to use Linux because don't you have to use the terminal a lot? Which is not really true. If anyone has actually used Android, that is a very, you know, clear case of no, you don't need to use terminal in Linux because Android is Linux. We have GUIs and all that. But then they're looking up every single command line function that they can use, or PowerShell function, to be able to bypass Microsoft's requirements of making an online account. And then they're like getting deep into learning about Microsoft Registry and how it operates, and then the terminal still scares you. When it's actually a lot easier. Here's the thing. I would argue a terminal is a lot easier than a lot of the ways you have to administrate Windows. I've said that for many years because everything's a text file in Linux. Like, just look at the proof of concept I came up with. I got to test it out properly, but I was going to roll this out into my home lab here. So this is some code I threw together. And I still got to set up the webhooks and everything. That's why I can show you this. I'm not afraid. This is all dummy data. But this right here, if you're wondering what this is a little shell script that I put together so that I can actually, when I do automatic updates inside of Linux on my servers, have it send me a webhook to Discord, Matrix, and or Teams to alert me when updates have performed. And how do you do this? It's all a text file. So all I have to do is make this executable, link that file into unattended upgrades, and boom, done. That's it. And if I want to make it, you know, email as well, you just attach an email handler into the whole thing there. It's pretty straightforward. I'll eventually have this on my GitHub once I have it working the way I want, but it's pretty straightforward. Because I was going to be like, hey, I'm tired of, you know, all of my servers having to auto-update and then check on them every so often to make sure they've done their updates. So I'm like, why can't I just let it tell me? And you could do the same thing if you use Telegram. I don't. To actually send yourself a message, because I've used Telegram before to make bots for my Raspberry Pis that were operating my 3D printers. So it's not that hard to do that. Now I want you to think about if you were to do the same thing and just have Windows like notify you when your update's done, you kind of just have to sit there and wait. Even on the server side of things very often. I know some of you are going to say, well, you can script that with PowerShell and maybe. But only to an extent. Thank you for the follow there. Computer Whiz, thank you. I shut down with an auto hotkey in terminal. Okay. I've really never really used auto hotkey. I am a Linux nerd. I think it's terminal. Funny. Gee, if this monster is asking me for Tree Fitty. I told you, goddamn Loch Ness Monster, I ain't gonna give you your Tree Fitty. Always had issue with KDE, can never get them to be stable. I tried KDE again a little while ago with Tuxedo OS when I got my Tuxedo computer laptop, and I wanted it to just have a Mac OS-y kind of feel. I do like the Mac, you know, kind of dock and everything there, but I could never get it to work the way that I wanted. sorry. Was that Rick? Yes, that was. Hold on, let me catch up with chat. I am still now run into the issue of users literally not knowing that Windows or Mac is an OS. Well, yeah, you have a lot of people that unfortunately don't understand the basics of computers at that level. Whereas it used to be, like in the 90s and 2000s, that was at least a basic understanding of things. Now people don't even understand iOS as an operating system. They don't understand Android as an operating system, or Linux, or Windows, or Mac, or, you know, all these different things. Black box that eats souls. I put all my friends on Kubuntu because I feel Ubuntu is a little bloated nowadays. I do have to agree, Ubuntu is a little bit bloated, but I grew up with a Debian-like system, and I like the fact that the Ubuntu distributions, or at least the forks of it too, they have everything packaged a little bit easier than Debian's do, and Debian stable tends to be really behind in terms of packages. That's why I like Pop! OS. It's a fork of Ubuntu. Originally, Pop! OS started out as System 76 making an extension suite for Ubuntu, and then it became so extensive, they just, released their own operating system. I've liked their stuff for years, their extensions and things like that. I also still now run it. Oh yeah, we answered that. Chief, when are you going to make a YouTube to PeerTube sync code using Python? So the issue isn't that the needing to make a sync feature. That already exists. The issue with syncing YouTube to PeerTube is that YouTube on their side is blocking the ability for me to sync to PeerTube. They set up some kind of checks that you can no longer get that to work easily. It's a limitation on the YouTube side imposed by Google because they don't want you to export your videos like that through their API. So it's not an issue of, oh, I have to make something for it to sync. It's an issue of Google doesn't allow that function in the way that I would like it to, you know, perform in order for me to go over to that. Or at least expand to that. Now, what was the most worst failed OS of all times? Windows ME. I'd have to say Windows ME. Thoughts on Catchy OS? Haven't played with it. I keep hearing people play with it, but I'm just at the point right now in my life where I'd rather focus on the projects that I'm doing than hopping to distributions. Because you have to remember, I've been doing Linux since, like, middle school. I started tinkering with, now late elementary because of the friend of the family. But I didn't start living in Linux until about high school. So I've been doing this for, like, a couple decades now, tinkering with Linux. So I already had my distro hopping days, and now I'm just focusing more on, oh, I just need this to be stable to do my work. This is the important thing I like to tell people. Nobody uses an operating system. They use applications that happen to run on an operating system. An operating system's goal, or, you know, objective, is really just there to interface with your hardware so you can operate your applications. An operating system, in my view, should be able to start up and then get the hell out of your way to run your applications and not bother you. The reason why I don't care for Mac OS as well as Windows is I have to deal with the operating system too much to get what I need done. I have barely had to do anything on the operating system side, if we exclude updates and all that stuff, other than a couple of scripts to, like, get the audio system to pipe out to both the stream PC and my headphones at the same time, but that's a niche use case, and some minor configuration. It just starts up, gets the hell out of my way, and lets me run my applications. But then Windows, oh my god, do you know how many times I have to mess with the Streambox that runs Windows 11 Enterprise over here just to get it to do what I need it to do? I still have to mess with this about every month, every other month. I've had Windows updates break things where I've had to roll back updates because it didn't like the, interface. And then driver updates on Windows are a pain. Because on Linux, I just update the entire operating system and it pulls in the drivers, pulls in my web browser, pulls in my Office suite, pulls in everything I need to do. So I basically do 3 commands. You can do it all through the pop shop, by the way, but I'm a little bit old-fashioned. Apt update brings all the software repositories up to date. Apt upgrade downloads all the upgrades and everything. And then Flatpak update, which updates all the Flatpaks, which are the sandbox applications I use. That updates the entire operating system, and I don't have to do anything else. Whereas on Windows, I have to, every so often, for some reason the browser doesn't update, and then I have to install it manually. I don't know why. It's happened to Firefox, it's happened to Chrome, it's happened to, all these different things. You have to do Windows updates, of course, but then you have to do your drivers for all your different softwares, so I have to go out and hunt sometimes the updated drivers for the motherboards, for the webcam, for the Elgato stuff, for the NVIDIA stuff. I probably have to spend every month, I'd say on average, about 2 to 3 hours maintaining Windows, whereas on Linux, I run a one-stringer, a one-liner. I literally just run this command. Hold on. I'll show you this. I'm not going to actually run it because I just did it before the stream. I really just do sudo update, sudo apt upgrade, -y, that tells it to automatically do a yes. Flatpak update, -y. I can do that. And then the last thing I actually do, sudo shutdown -r now. So that'll tell it update the repos, update the, download all the updates, then run the updates on Flatpak, then reboot the entire operating system. I literally run that line, go grab myself a cup of coffee, or, go to the bathroom, and I come back, and then just have to log back into my machine. Yeah, see? I'll show you. And this is the other thing I like about Linux. If I type something into the password, you can't actually see what I'm typing. But, look. Okay, so it's grabbing all the updates. You can see it's got even the Signal repo for the Signal app. Here's Steam. Steam's got their own repo. Even Microsoft for Visual Studio Code. Proton's got their own stuff over here. Don't know why it's hanging over there. Sometimes it hangs on an update. And then it just grabs all the updates. You can see it's grabbing the updates in the Flatpaks. It shouldn't have to really do much of anything because of, I already did the update, yeah. And you can see right now the following packages were automatically installed and are no longer required. So, to remove all that junk, simple. Auto remove. Look at that. I'm going to remove my old NVIDIA drivers, the 570s, because I'm on 580 now. That's all NVIDIA stuff. Boom. Done. Uninstalling NVIDIA drivers even on Windows takes longer than that. You like Mac? I used to. But, yeah, this is why I'd rather deal with Linux. Now, you could do all these same commands, just to be clear, inside the pop shop. Or whatever operating system you're using in their GUI for it. There's also Synaptic Package Manager. There's tons of things to do this. And then I can literally just, click updates and installed software. And this will actually do the same thing. It'll grab all the repos and check the Flatpak repositories. And you can see, I literally from here can see everything I've installed on this system. My Yubico Authenticator, Wine, VLC, Visual Studio Code, Virtual Machine Manager, Thunderbird, Steam, Slack, all these different applications are on here. BitTorrent. And most of these, I didn't have to go out and manually grab. The honest truth is, when I get a new operating system, when I upgrade Linux or reinstall it, it takes me probably all of maybe 30 minutes to get everything the way I want it. flip to dark mode, grab my preferences, reconnect my drives to my NAS. I have a script to do that. Grab my applications I need to do, and then we're back in business, and then I'm literally within 30 minutes, maybe an hour, right back to production ready. Whereas in Windows, an hour is just where you start getting your drivers done. Why don't you like Mac anymore? I stopped liking Mac many years ago. So my last MacBook, is it down here? Yeah, it's over here. God damn it, Barack. You headbutted me, you dick. Good dog. This was my MacBook. The bottom case cover I had is gone. This was a MacBook 2011. That was my last MacBook. These were great because Mac OS was okay then. PowerPC Macs, in my opinion, were a lot better than the Intel Macs because when they switched to Intel, they didn't actually change any of the thermals inside of the laptop in terms of dissipating heat, because Intel CPUs, if you read their guidance, they actually very clear on what you need to do to dissipate heat. Mac, however, Apple didn't listen. And they were blaming Intel for the overheating, and the cult of Mac was blaming Intel for the overheating. But the reality is, like I've said on many different videos, what is this laptop missing that almost every single other laptop you have bought, regardless of brand, have on the bottom? I'll give you a hint. Yeah. This HP ProBook is from the same era. What's this got at the bottom that the other one doesn't? No, it has fans. It has vents. Because on a MacBook, where is that venting the air? Usually just that slit. In fact, Louis Rossmann even talks about how these Macs had an issue where the heat was actually going directly on the seam of the Mac, and a lot of these unibody Macs were coming apart because they're actually kind of glued together. They're not really a solid piece of metal on a lot of them. But there was that issue, but you know, okay, so in the Intel era, you could at least make them cost effective because most of the cost when you bought a Mac is the Apple tax, as we know. But back in the day with this MacBook, I could buy the Mac, I just have to buy the CPU I specifically wanted, but then I get the lowest amount of hard drive space and memory, and then I go straight to Micro Center, or I buy my Mac at Micro Center, and then I would buy a Mac memory upgrade kit and a hard drive that I wanted, and I would be able to get a maxed out laptop for hundreds of dollars less than if you got it pre-spec'd by Apple that way. But then Apple started soldering in all their components. Not just the CPU, the memory, the SSD, all of that stuff. But their new ARM chips are better. No, they're overpriced. And here's the thing. ARM's been on Linux and Windows for years. True, they have the Apple, ARM, ecosystem and all that, but ARM has a lot of its limitations in terms of the Apple ecosystem itself. Virtualization on Mac is still a pain in the butt. Mac has finally come around to realizing they need to operate virtual machines on it. But Mac, this is one of the reasons why I threw the towel in many years ago. This Mac, I couldn't update to the latest operating system all the time, or the latest update, because it would break my ability to run my virtual machines on here with just VirtualBox. So I'd have to roll back the update to be able to do my work. Mac OS 26, it's so ugly. Yeah, it definitely is. Writing commands within the terminal can be useful. Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't care if you're on Mac, Windows, Linux, FreeBSD, Haiku, whatever. The terminal is always going to be very, very powerful. I mean, if you're going to get a job in IT or cybersecurity, you're going to have to know a little bit of PowerShell and or Bash. I got that script on my notes. I copy and pasted it in the terminal. Got tired of typing it in. Yeah, I could also just make a quick alias for it. So let's say we could actually do this very simply. Here, hold on. Trying to remember, what was the syntax? Hold on. Nano bash RC. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if we do, like... Actually, we can just drop it right into here. Make my life easy. So this is bash RC, so you can actually make aliases really easy in here. So we're going to make an alias called system update. And then... dash Y. And I think that's all I need. That was my quick little alias so I could launch Monero from anywhere. Okay, so I can actually make that quick little shortcut there. Source bash RC. And then I should be able to. Now I have my alias there for system update. Boom. Or I could actually make that alias called upon in a script, like what I do at work, so I can switch AWS accounts and environments. So I move from sandbox to testing to production, merely by just doing AWS underscore SBX, AWS underscore testing, AWS underscore prod. And it switches between the accounts by changing the variables. So you can have a lot more power inside of Linux and customize it to do whatever you want. You saw, I quickly just made a one-liner command into an alias, and I can call upon that much faster than I can doing all the updates inside of Windows if I wanted to do that. Oh, thank you for the follow, the Holic in 1985. Didn't see you come through. I turn on permanent nightlight. What do you mean permanent nightlight? Install Linux on that Mac? I could, but that Mac itself needs a new hard drive and I think a new battery as well, and I kind of just keep it as a doorstop at this point. Quick question, how do I get good Wi-Fi? My PC lags a lot and is too far away for Ethernet. Better antenna. That's all about your antenna. A lot of people will say, well, you need to get this wireless card to do this or that. The reality is your antenna is going to matter more than your actual wireless card. So make sure you get an antenna tuned to the wireless frequencies that you want. So 2.45/6 gigahertz. Get a really nice gain antenna. But here's an interesting thing that I've learned also recently when it came to antenna gain. For the most part, a stronger gain antenna has a more narrow field. So, like a vertical field. So, if you get a lower gain antenna, it'll accept a frequency from a wider vertical range, whereas a higher gain antenna will require, like, the elevation to be a little bit more, less sharp. If PowerShell is so powerful, why can't you make Windows update Windows apps? You can, but not entirely, because Windows never really had a proper package repository. So, like in Linux, we've had the repositories, like I was showing, since the 90s. Like, no joke. That whole concept of package management has been around since the early 90s, like the early beginnings of the internet. Whereas Microsoft only just added package management via Wingate within, I think, not even a decade ago. It's like only been, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago, unless I'm mistaken. And not everything fully works with it. So you have to actually program your updates around, like, things like SCCM, I think it's what it's called. And, yeah, you can... If you, like, with Windows, Windows Server Core, which has no GUI, there is a way to actually script all that, but it's just so convoluted inside of the Windows way of doing things. Whereas you saw, quick one-liner, updated my flat packs and my regular packages system-wide. You had to pay to update Mac iPod. What do you mean the Mac iPod? I mean, I kept my iPod alive for many years. So they're replacing it with like Tangara. I want to switch to Linux because Liquid Acid's so ugly. That's the nice thing about Linux. You can race out your desktop however you want. Although I'm kind of basic. I literally just install Pop! OS, flip on dark mode, put my desktop on, and then install my apps. And I'm like, okay, we're done. We're going. I learned PowerShell in school with my friends so we could bypass the school's user account restriction by restarting 3 times and installing the apps we wanted. Sounds about right. Didn't you know you could do that? Thank you for showing us this. What, the shortcut thing? Oh yeah, that is so useful. So you can actually, oh, I closed the terminal. So you can actually, put entire scripts into the bash RC. Now that bash RC, by the way, that's just for the local profile. There's a way to do it system-wide. I can't remember what that is, and that'll add shortcuts to all the users underneath. So, yeah, you can, but I only have one user on the system, so that's all I really need. And you can see, like, it's, I have, a few things in here I set up, you know, for LM Studio. This was an alias I had to launch my Monero daemon locally with the optimizations that I saw. So as you can see, instead of just running Monero D, it's running in Prune blockchain with the database sync mode of fast async 250 with 64 peers in and out and no limit on the up or down. So instead of typing all that out, I can literally just go, hold on, what did I call that? Yeah, Monero D local. And you see it'll actually go right into the system I'm in, start Monero D locally, and you can see it's syncing already. Oh. You can't see the terminal? Oh, that's because you're on TikTok. Right. All the other platforms got the widescreen version. Hint, hint. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Elbow, elbow. They hacked Louvre Museum, stole tons of data. What data did they steal from the Louvre that isn't already, like, well known? I'm just curious about that. But, yeah, as you can see, you can do this. Just gonna close that down. I don't need the Monero node right now, but I can always sync that up. I have, my, Pinode XMR syncing right now. I've rebuilt that entire thing thinking that I was having connection issues, and I found a weird issue with the Flatpak not being able to access the node locally on my network, so I just was like, while troubleshooting, I was like, let's rebuild the entire database. And now that's going to take a couple of days to sync. Would you stop? Would you stop? What's up, buddy? How is Linux used in the job world? What is it mainly used for by companies? So, almost every company, especially in the enterprise world, has it on the back end. So it's often used for hosting websites and their back-end infrastructure. Windows servers may be used in terms of Active Directory, but that's starting to get deprecated as they move more towards Intune to host a lot of their systems for managing them. But Linux, there's a lot of Linux systems being used out there in terms of enterprise. Like, it dominates the server market. Now, on the desktop side, in terms of business, it still isn't used as widely, but that's slowly starting to change. Like, I remember Home Depot, their point-of-sale systems are Linux. But yeah, there's a lot of capability out there for using Linux. And I also, at work, use Linux and Windows subsystem for Linux, so I do a lot of my dev work that I need to do. inside of Linux just because it's easier for me to work through Bash than it is PowerShell, and I have a lot more power to do a lot of the things I need. Because by nature of how they lock down a lot of the Windows systems, WSL, I have the ability to just install the libraries and stuff that I need to get my thing done. Excuse me. What's up in the Netherlands? So many cheap secondhand PCs are now available because of Windows 10 end of support. Oh yeah, I was looking into that myself because I have been wanting to get enough computers to do a Kubernetes cluster for a while, but I didn't want to do it on just something as simple as a Pi. And a lot of those Windows 10 machines are perfect Linux and or FreeBSD boxes for my home labbing needs. So I wanted to get one for a SIM, so I could set up Grafana, maybe set up a Splunk server, or at least a Graylog server. Grafana is a dashboarding system. Here, I can show you actually what that is. They have a free demo site, I think it is. I love Grafana. It's open. They have an open source plan as well, if you're curious about it. See? Open source. Let me see. Do they have the demo version? They used to have... They have a free tier of Grafana Cloud, by the way, if you want to play with it. You can get 50 gigabytes of logs, traces, and profiles. So it's not bad for a home lab. That's quite a lot to do what you need to do. They used to have a demo. Hold on. Visit our trust portal. Hold on. Let me see if I can find... Grafana demo dashboard. Ah, there we are. play.grafana.org. Grafana makes me think of work specifically, which makes me hate it. None of the jobs that I had actually used it. This could be caused by reverse proxy settings. Okay. There's something going on. But they have a demo in there, and I love the actual dashboards and such. Let me see. Grafana Sandbox. Maybe it just didn't like how I clicked through. Okay, there we go. For some reason, the other link didn't work, but this does. So this is basically what Grafana looks like. This is a demo, so you can customize this however you want. So you can set like alerts out here for different things. You can set up your metrics. So this can get you an idea of like, you can even tie this into Datadog, so you can set up dashboards to do whatever you want. So I had mine originally set up before it killed the SD card it was running on. It's a little bit heavy, so don't just go with a Pi doing this. I had it doing all of my pfSense dashboards. I had it doing a test every 30 minutes of speed testing my network so I could plot out what my speed test was, and latency issues, and there's a lot of different things out there. You can do a lot with this. Now, this is an interesting thing, AI and machine learning out there. So, let's see, we can do... They've added a few things in here since I've actually played with it. But the main, you know, bread and butter is the dashboards. You can have them very customizable. Oh, you can... They even made a Doom demo in here? Really? They got Doom to run in Grafana. That's funny. Oh my god, it really is the Doom game. It's really slow, but... Of course you can run Doom on everything. Let's see if we can get... But you can do a lot of different visualization. I'm trying to find a good dashboard for y'all. No, no. Asserts dashboard. Here, Kubernetes, that might be a good one. So there you go, you can set up monitoring for your Kubernetes clusters over here. So this reminds me a lot of Datadog, but you have a lot more capabilities to design the dashboards than Datadog. But you can always tie in, they don't allow you to see the plugins, but there's a ton of plugins in there. You have observability. So yeah, you can tie in a lot of different things. I really like Grafana. Worst game of all times that you'd rather play with rocks on a riverbank? It's kind of hard to think of. But, yeah. So, that's Grafana. This is open source. You can easily set this up yourself in your own home lab. If you can get one of those spare Windows 10 boxes that are going around right now, it's perfect. My issue that I found was I didn't have enough RAM when I ran it on my Rock Pro 64 or my Raspberry Pi, because I needed like 16 gigabytes of RAM. But again, I was feeding a ton of data into it and processing a lot, because it was processing all of my Ubiquiti switch information, so all the Wi-Fi access points, the switches themselves, down to like the temperature of each of the devices, and all the metrics there, and the pfSense information, and the information about the network itself, you know, in terms of like the speed and all that. And I was feeding a lot more stuff into it. And I was trying to do more and more and more, and it just was not holding up. Now, if I got like one of those little boxes, put a nice little Samsung Evo SSD in there, I could probably be fine with like an i5 or i7 CPU to do all that stuff. Running out of RAM because of those damn protogems. Well, you know what I would do with 64 gigabytes of RAM? 2 Chrome tabs at the same time. But yeah, I definitely want to get a Grafana set up. I have some hardware coming in. So, for those of you that have been with me since I started streaming a couple of years ago, God, I think I've been streaming longer than a couple of years, but a couple of years ago, I added to the streams the ability to put all of my alerts that they would print out on a thermal printer. Many of you may remember that if you've been around long enough. And it just died, the printer itself, and then I couldn't get the software to work, and it was just one of those, I didn't really want to, you know, spend too much time redoing it again. Well, that's going to be coming back. So I was actually watching another streamer, Nutty. He makes some interesting plugins and stuff, and he actually worked out the plugin to do this stuff, and I found a thermal printer for about $75 to do just that, and it's going to be slightly upgraded than the last one, because now it's going to have an auto cutter. And what I was thinking of doing is I'm probably going to like store them in containers. Don't know what I'll do with them, but it might be interesting to like collect them over time. Mini PCs are usually power efficient. Usually is the operative word. Wait, you've been following for 2 years, Vampire? 2 years, 4 months, 24 days, and 22 hours. How to get CISSP. Study the textbook, pass the practice exams, and take the test. That's really all there is to it. Oh, and have at least 5 years of field experience, 4 if you have a 4-year degree. That's really all it requires. I have a CISSP. It's more of a complicated English test than anything, because here's the thing. CISSP at most proves that you've had a few years of experience, but I have met people that don't know how to do even a basic terminal command that have a CISSP. I know someone who's a lawyer that got a CISSP. They do cyber law and stuff like that. Anyway. I've kind of come to the conclusion that college degrees aren't really as important as people say they are when it comes to getting a job, because especially after you're a few years into the field, what good is a college degree going to do? And certs at most validate the knowledge that you have of concepts. But there's a lot of certs out there that are not worth your time going. But I, then again, only have one cert, the CISSP. Now, I will say you'll probably need to spend like a few months studying it, because there's like, it's an inch deep and a mile wide of what you need to know on the CISSP. You don't need to buy anything other than the actual textbook they have, the official one. Yeah, it's kind of dry, but then you do the practice tests that come with it. What I also recommend is there's the Learn Z app, like Learn Zulu app. Download that on your phone. I paid like 15 or 20 bucks a month for the tests that they had on there. Did them dozens of times until I started averaging about 80 or so %. And then I went to go take the test. Now, the test itself is grueling. It's like 3 hours long. And here's the thing. You either have to get it proctored on your computer in a very pristine area. And by pristine, I mean, like, you cannot have papers or anything. They have to, like, inspect the area with your phone, and they're going to be monitoring you. You get no bathroom breaks, really, and if so much as a dog barks, you can fail the test. So I recommend going to the testing centers, and they are intense. It's the Pearson testing centers, if you've never used them before. They, like, check behind your ears, pat you down, check your glasses to make sure you don't have any recording devices or, you know, anything in your ears to listen, all that. And, like, you can't even talk. It's nerve-wracking. Can I react to a Swedish music video? Maybe. Yeah, the Pearson VUE testing centers are also used by colleges and other industries. Okay. Let us open the videos. Hold up. Alright, so we got some videos to react to. Alright, so this is what Vampire put into the review on stream, and then we'll see about getting to that. Thought about getting my CISSP. It can't hurt, but yeah. You know what also helps? If I give you guys audio. Because I forgot it'll only put the audio to my headset until I run that command, which pipes the audio out to all systems. Okay.
Star, but in...
Make sure. Curious now if you can hear that.
Smash Mouth's All-Star, but in 2020.
Why are you not loading? This is the thing I get annoyed with Discord sometimes for some reason. That player does not want to load. Alright, let's try this again. I know you can hear it, but for some reason, it just was not cooperating. Oh, I'm just making sure that my, God damn it. Oh, TikTok. Alright, hold on. The chat thing froze. Hold on. I'm just reloading my chat screen so I can see all the chats. Alright, moving on to that. Reloading. There we go. What's up, Jaguar? Nice. Alright, let's see if now after reloading that, will it actually load.
Smash Mouth's All-Star, but in 2025.
A boomer once told me the world used to be cozy before it was all painted gray.
What's with the tuba in the background?
On the walls, pretty molding in the halls, but now it all looks the freaking same. Now it's doom and gloom like a dentist waiting room. Kids used to wear their favorite cartoons. Now all that matters is aesthetic. Even Taco Bell now looks pathetic. Cheaper to build, easy to
I hate how accurate this is.
blue LEDs. Architecture is dead. Hey, what's wrong with leaving brick red? Hey now, it's all gray now. Cheapest builder, great. Hey now, it's all beige now. As long as they get paid. No more glitter and gold. We just need.
This would be Smash Mouth today. Probably should turn off my background music here while I'm doing this. Alright.
Welp, it's another day in MAGA America, where a woman flees an abusive ex.
So what's this you sent, Vampire?
In another state, and ends up hunted by.
Yeah, these are TikTok videos that my mods put down on the review stream.
She escaped her abuser and went to a state where
Wait,
abortion is
hold
legal.
up.
But her ex. Welp, it's another day in MAGA America, where a woman flees an abusive ex, gets a legal abortion in another state, and ends up hunted by the police using 83,000 cameras. That's what happened to a.
Did I not predict that we would have a situation exactly like that many years ago? Like when Roe v. Wade was overturned? And they're like, well, it's just going to be a state thing. And I'm like, there's going to be a situation where this exact scenario was going to play out. I don't know when exactly I said that, but I know I said this at some point.
Woman from Texas. She escaped her abuser and went to a state where abortion is legal. But her ex, clearly deeply concerned about women's health, called the cops, claiming she'd violated Texas law because nothing says pro-life like weaponizing the justice system to stalk your ex. So the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, with obviously nothing else to do, fired up something called flock safety. It's basically if a Ring doorbell married a traffic cam and had a cop for a stepdad with boundary issues. They typed her plate into the system and boom, 83,000 cameras across the country lit up like we're in The Handmaid's Tale.
And didn't I also say there was an issue with using Ring doorbells when they started saying, you know, cops can just get access to everyone's Ring data whenever they want without, you know, really you being aware of it and most people not being aware that this is an issue? And why I was saying you're probably better off if you want to get an alarm system to go with something other than Ring, like a local alarm company. That's what I recommended for years. But yeah, that was, yeah. Yeah, Jessica, you can confirm you talking about this. Yeah, I know I talked about it at some point. I don't know when. I think it was like right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. I said this is going to play out at some point where I even theorized that people could get penalized just for conversing through Facebook, and then it could be aiding and abetting a crime if, you know, you're giving support. Ever heard of Deathlock? Sounds familiar.
Under his eye, Flock brags that it's shaping the future of safety. Yeah, by turning domestic violence tips into police manhunts. So, what did the police type into the national search system as the reason for this search? This part's real. They literally typed abortion and female.
What?
They weren't chasing a criminal. They were chasing a uterus. Oh, and when Illinois cameras caught her, Texas cops reached out asking for more info, and Illinois police actually handed it over.
This is the other problem I have with these systems. Because if so, like, let's put it this way. I've had this actually happen to me where something happened in front of my house and they noticed I had cameras. And they asked if they could get the cameras. And I asked them straight up, what's the time and date and what's the reasoning for it? And, you know, I am like, I'm not just going to hand over my data. I need to know specifically when and where and why. And they tried to hassle me, and I'm like, look, I don't have to hand this over, but I need to know why I'm handing it over. And that's because the data is controlled by me. Whereas when you do the ring system and all that, they have access to it whenever they want.
Which, by the way, violates their own reproductive privacy.
Deathlock is a map of many. Oh, yeah, okay.
These days. And the most infuriating part, she didn't break any law. She got a legal abortion in a state where it's legal. But her ex got to use the police as his personal stalker squad. She wasn't charged, just tracked, interrogated, and traumatized. Oh, and nobody's facing any consequences. Not the cops, not the company, definitely not the creepy ex. We've reached the point where escaping domestic violence and getting health care are both treated like crimes in progress. If your ex can't stalk you, don't worry, the sheriff will. At this rate, Texas will need a new slogan. Don't mess with Texas unless it's women.
I unfortunately said many years ago that this was going to be the situation that we would be facing. And of course, no one's going to be held accountable. And that's the problem. Everyone's like, well, why do you care so much about being private? And I'm like, because one day that can be flipped on you. Everyone has a right to privacy. Big tech will win because it's cheaper than local family-run cam business. Maybe, but how much would you put a cost on your privacy and freedom? Alright. Now, let me get a new window here. Because Nero put up another video over here. Now, this is the thing I hate when you go to TikTok itself. One, the notifications. And two, it automatically unmutes it. Is that a freaking loot? We just need a bard to bust in with Chester's piece right there. Making wish I could be a bard. Alright, let's get a D20 and roll for it, Jessica. I'm just laughing at, like, this is a loot. Moody Renaissance emo. That was good. That was good. Alright, so I actually put this video up myself. This is from Hank Green. Many of you are probably familiar with Hank Green. It's the state of the AI industry is freaking me out. So I started watching this just a little bit, and I was like, you know what? We should watch this on stream together. So let's watch this.
Good graphical representation of reality. Now, they're never perfect. There's always...
Oh, I do have the dice set up? Nice.
About one that contains
oh, no, I don't. I'll set it up later.
A little bit of time for me to parse. And once I did, it kind of terrified me. I'm going to show it to you as well. What a good little visualization we have on our hands here. How NVIDIA
Good God.
and OpenAI fuel the AI money machine. So very quickly...
That is a confusing chart.
NVIDIA makes the chips that do the compute that creates the artificial intelligence systems. OpenAI is the biggest company that creates the systems that use those chips to create artificial intelligence systems that do stuff. Not just the chatbot, but also all of the other things that it does, including, you know, Sora 2, which you've heard my opinion on. And then there's Microsoft. You've heard of them. AMD is another chip maker like NVIDIA, Oracle, and a few others in here like CoreWeave, possibly some others. I actually don't know what all these companies are. I think Nscale might be one as well, but it's the little dot. Oracle and CoreWeave, at least, are the companies that have built like the data centers, and they buy chips from NVIDIA and then they like lease out the compute. They sell that. So basically, Intel and AMD and NVIDIA sell chips to the AI companies or to the data center companies, and then the data center companies sell the compute to the AI companies. Sometimes the middleman running the data center is there, sometimes it's not there. But in either case, NVIDIA is doing very well because so many people want their chips right now. But we can think of it as like AI companies, chip companies, and then the middlemen compute companies.
But it's feeling like a bubble.
Want is to be able to keep existing. Right now, OpenAI, worth $500 billion, has $12 billion of revenue. That's not profit. That's the amount of money they made total. Their profit is deeply in the negative. And NVIDIA has extremely high profit. They make way more money than they spend because people really want their chips right now, and so they'll pay way extra for them, and they're the best chips.
There's like money laundering. Basically.
Crunch. There's a huge amount of demand for those chips. The prices are way up.
You're going to
NVIDIA.
hate
That's why
me
they are
for
the
the next
largest
video
company
now.
in the world and are one company that is worth more than the entire pharmaceutical industry combined. But even then, even with their
Wait, what? Hold on.
Margin.
Let me just make sure I heard what he said.
The best chips. Crunch. There's a huge amount of demand for those chips. The prices are way up. It's very good for NVIDIA. That's why they are the largest company in the world and are one company that is worth more than the entire pharmaceutical industry.
That is crazy.
Absolutely bonkers margin that they have right now.
I thought he talked about the entire industry, and no, it's one company.
The value of all NVIDIA stock combined is much higher than you would see with a normal company, which indicates to belief among investors that the prices of those chips will keep going up and the number of chips produced will keep going up. So NVIDIA desperately wants to keep the prices of their chips the same or higher. They want the demand to increase faster than supply, but they also want to increase supply dramatically so that they can sell more things. So
this is why I find it such BS that they have this manufacturer's suggested retail price, but they never hit it on the GPUs.
What they're saying is, well, if it's a bubble, why are the prices of NVIDIA chips continuing to increase? There's a huge amount of demand there. People are buying them. That can't be entirely irrational. So keep that in mind. The demand for NVIDIA chips far outstrips the supply of NVIDIA chips. And the idea is that will...
If the price continues to go up, that more or less, I mean, there's some nuances around it, is a bubble. Now, I'm curious about something because they're saying the price of, the chips is going up. Let's check the inflation calculator because I remember when I was, starting to do my computer building and everything like that, the highest end GPU was $600. So that would be, what, 2000, let's just say when, 2008 should be fine. Start of the Obama years. $600. Okay, so maybe... Okay, so high-end GPUs. Now, mind you, that $600 number, I believe, is what the highest-end GPU used to be. Maybe it would have been $700. The top-end GPU right now should be $1,050. We're paying over 2 Gs for 5090s. That is insane to know how much this has outpaced inflation. Okay, continue.
Continue to be the case even as supply increases. But first, quickly, the sponsor of this video, Ground News. I don't know about you, but one thing I notice is that when I start to have a preference for a kind of content,
I keep wanting to try Ground News out. I keep forgetting that.
And that can get my head stuck in a reality.
But I played with it a little bit. It actually is nice.
Reality. Ground News is an app and a website, I'm on the website version right now, that gathers how different outlets cover the same story all in one place. It shows you who's reporting, what they're saying, and even where they fall on the political spectrum. There's a little blind spot bias feature where sometimes you do find that the stuff that is really covered on one side or the other is meant to outrage you.
Yeah, of course.
But there is this story about Governor Newsom signing a new law to protect kids from the risks of AI chatbots. I do not know about this. I had not heard about this at all until I went on and there it was. Not covered really by many people at all, but mostly covered by organizations on the left. One of my favorite things is that over here you can actually see all the outlets that have covered it, and then you can pick the ones that you already know do a good job. So Los Angeles Times or the AP. Also the ones that you might have already paid for and not have to worry about a paywall.
So someone who wants to switch to Linux, do you think that anti-cheat will be figured out? Anti-cheat works on Linux. It's specifically kernel-level anti-cheat that is extremely unethical.
Such as referring users to,
and that's a developer issue, not a Linux issue. That's a developer issue, not making it compatible for Linux.
Some of the other legislation,
but almost all of my games work on Linux fine, even the ones that do have anti-cheat, like Helldivers 2 2 has an anti-cheat.
And again, I will
Halo
say,
Master Chief Collection has an anti-cheat. And a few others, and it works fine.
Go to the place and actually look at the thing.
It's those ones that have kernel-level anti-cheat that are the issue.
Whether they're ad-supported like the AP is. One of my biggest frustrations with the internet is not knowing whether.
And my advice would be, there's tens of thousands of other games out there. Pick another one that doesn't do it the unethical way.
Or the Guardian.
No software should have kernel-level access, not even security software.
40% off the Vantage plan with the QR code on the screen right now, or at the link in the description.
It's spyware. It's worse than spyware. It's a rootkit.
Easy to remember. It's a pretty cool product that saves me time, and it means that I'm not always finding my news on social media feed, which are not known for their accuracy or nuance. Okay. Back to the video. We're going to leave the middlemen aside right now, and we're going to look at the AI companies, because then what you have is OpenAI, a company that's now worth $500 billion.
What is the point to have a kernel and not use it? You're using the kernel every time you boot an operating system.
Of revenue. It has no profit, and it is by far the largest AI company. And with this $12 billion of revenue, they are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on these chips. And OpenAI, I don't want to say that like they couldn't do more than they're doing right now, but they're
overextended.
Not, like, brand new. They've been selling their services for a while. Now,
yeah.
Did they increase the price of their services? Yes. Do they seem to think that that would be the thing that does it for them? No. They're creating feeds inside of their systems. Now they've got a feed inside of ChatGPT where like when you open it, it's like, hey, just like read some stuff. Just read some stuff that I prepared for you. Instead of asking me questions, here's stuff that we think based on what you've talked to me about before, you might be interested in. And the play there is obvious to me, which is they've said that they don't want to put ads inside of the experience of you just asking it questions.
You'll eventually get ads. Microsoft is the parent company
of the stuff that
or
it just
big investor.
to you. And if it's just providing stuff for me, maybe
I wish for Linux Mobile, man can dream. It's called Android.
Also, maybe like Sora's slop talk.
Android is a Linux.
Is also a thing where they could put ads, though. I can't imagine that anyone thinks that there will actually be a lot of people who spend time on slop talk. But maybe, you never know, irrational exuberance and all that. And thus, you have the other side of the argument, the people who say that this is
pure Linux on a phone. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Well, there's demand for OpenAI's services. People use them. They're using them more and more.
Yeah, we got a video that we're going to be reacting to about that later.
The demand is outstripping the supply. There's plenty of supply to meet the demand.
It's better to start with Kali or Parrot.
According, I think to them, they lose money every single time you use one of their products. Like the amount that it costs to train
Probably keep to a virtual machine at most.
More than the amount that they are charging, even for their top $200 a month tier. In that case, it's possible charging costs for their top $200 a month.
On OpenAI's $200 per month subscriptions, people use it too much more than we expected. Well, yeah. The people that are actually using ChatGPT heavily to want to pay $200 per month are probably the heavy users of ChatGPT.
Tier. In that case,
the heaviest ones.
It's possible that they could charge 10 times more to their enterprise clients and to their consumer clients and all those people.
Oh, their enterprise plan is ridiculously expensive, but you can do a lot more with it.
Actually work? Like, would the $200 a month people pay $2,000 a month? But even more than that, is it
potentially
true that the
some of them, but I don't know if all of them
chips is increasing, or is NVIDIA creating that demand?
That is a good question he has there. So I would say NVIDIA is creating a shortage of... Well, because here's the thing. This shortage of NVIDIA GPUs has been going on long before the OpenAI, LLM, craziness with, AI in general, but it's not really AI. It's a large language model and all that. People were saying cryptocurrency was a big reason there weren't a lot of GPUs. No, there was a supply chain issue a few years ago during the pandemic, and it just happened to coincide. But what blows my mind is, and I've said this before on stream, people are not as outraged about the LLM, AI, whatever the hell you want to call it, situation, as they were about cryptocurrency, even though by far all of these LLMs are using far more electricity and using far more GPUs than the entire cryptocurrency mining community was using when everyone was freaking out over it. And now we've seen a shift in NVIDIA's priorities, that their priority is to create the GPUs and AI accelerators for their corporate customers over the consumer GPUs, which is also in part why we don't have as much supply, because they would rather kick out the chips from their foundries to go towards their corporate customers that'll pay hand over fist for this money, leaving us, the peons, if you will, on the bottom to fight for scraps. Like, I remember what I showed you earlier. This inflation over here. A top-end, like, $700 GPU, back when I was doing, in my teen years, should be $1,050 now. And NVIDIA 5090 is over $2,000. Just to show you how skewed it is and how overpriced out of inflation everything is. But yeah, I definitely would think there's also an artificial constraint to produce a higher price, because when have we really ever seen within the past few years GPUs being sold at the MSRP? There were people scalping GPUs for many years. It's harder for people to complain about something they actually use. Just waiting for the bubble to pop, housing, chatbots, and so on. It'll eventually happen. This is like the dot-com boom going on right now. And the dot-com boom, like, let me put it this way. When this bubble pops, it's not like all of these LLM AI companies are just going to completely go away entirely. You're going to have a lot of the smaller enterprises, companies that were all built around AI, promising to do amazing things. Those will close down, just like in the dot-com boom, when the bust. But there are going to be some prominent companies that are going to stay out of the AI bust, just like there was when the dot-com bust happened. Like Amazon comes to mind. They survived the dot-com bubble. And I'm sure there are going to be some companies that survive this, but you know how, like, we're seeing, like, a bunch of these companies spawn up and, like, throw AI into every little product, even though it doesn't necessarily make sense for AI to be in that product. And I remember when I was at Web Summit a year ago, which, if you're not familiar with Web Summit, that is a conference where startups go to meet investors. Like companies like Revolut, Uber, and a few others actually got their seed funding and rounds of funding going to Web Summit. And all I saw was AI slop and people still hawking blockchains. Like, people were literally going around the investors saying, like, well, where does AI or blockchain fit into this product? And I'm like, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because it doesn't make sense here. Now, there are a few novel approaches to AI being in there. Like, I saw one of my followers, actually, that happened to be out there, was using AI to actually see about quality assurance in manufacturing, using cameras to see if assembly was done correctly. That made sense. Or metal 3D printing, using AI to actually make sure the layers were fused properly. That made sense to me, the way they did it. But I would venture a guess 90 to 95% of all the AI-related companies you see right now, and a lot of them are companies you're not aware of, they're going to go bust and bankrupt. And a lot of investors aren't going to recoup their investment from going into AI companies, because everyone, when OpenAI, well, this was before DeepSeek, burst the bubble a little bit for a lot of people that you don't have to spend so much into researching it as much. But every investor was trying to get in on the hype of it, similar to a few years ago. People were trying to get into blockchain companies and the hype around that. You saw companies literally add blockchain into their names to hype up their stock prices. .com is going to do the same thing, because that's the same thing a lot of companies did. They did .com in their name, and boom, stock market through the roof, because it's, a .com related thing. AI is having the same thing, and LLM. So yeah, eventually this bubble is going to burst. I don't know when, but it will eventually burst. It is not sustainable in the way that it is. It's overhyped right now. Now, I'm not going to say that there isn't use cases for LLMs and machine learning and all these things, because I use it every day. Like, I actually developed a proof of concept at work. I actually showcased this to you guys the other day. Well, I didn't showcase it, but I showcased the idea and I drew out the steps. I'll eventually re-engineer the whole thing and show you it operating, where I took screenshots of smishes, sent it in to it. It used ML, LLM, and OCR to process the entire thing. Would use OCR to turn it into text, then use the text to do an analysis on if it was a brand impersonation, VIP impersonation. You could adjust the VIP list in there, and then it would send it out to the LLM to do processing and do a analysis on what it thinks the threat level is, as basically a SOC Tier 1 for smish reports. That's a valuable thing. I use it a lot for my coding things. It probably is doing about 80 to 90% of a lot of what I do for coding now. But as I've talked about as well, I actually came up with the saying for this earlier, and we'll get back to the video. There's a lot of people vibe coding, but no one's vibe checking. What I mean by that is there's a lot of people throwing code in from LLMs and just trusting it, but they're not understanding what the code is doing or how to better put the infrastructure around that code. Like, if you go to an LLM and say, make this application for me, like my automation I had to parse Twitch's API and then post a Mastodon through API, it actually had me hard code the secrets in there. And I'm like, no. We're going to put that into an environment file while we do this locally. And then eventually I want to put it into a secrets manager. And then when I'm at work, I'm working with Lambdas, and it's like, we're going to use Python 3.9. No. That's about end of life. We're going to use Python 3.14 because that's the latest and greatest right now. You know, so there's all these things, like, you have to check your code, but I think there's going to be a problem with a lot of people not understanding the concepts around the code and just trusting it. We've already seen the problem right now with people vibe coding things and people having their projects compromised. Like, it's been suspected the T app and many others were compromised because they just left S3 buckets wide open. When LLMs pop, government will bail them. I'm not entirely sure about that. They're not as too big to fail as the auto companies, and even then I don't agree with it. And right now the government is so broke, it's going to be hard to justify it. Yeah, I was there last year. It's just corporate tech bro heaven. Oh yeah. Web Summit is one of the conferences I will say was the biggest waste of my time. I went to the one in Portugal. I enjoyed Portugal. Loved it. I will visit Portugal again. I'd love to live there one day. But I am never going to Web Summit again. That is the biggest waste of money. That whole conference is bull. I made a YouTube video on how it was a waste of time. You can watch that if you care about it. Anyway.
And likewise, is it true that the demand for OpenAI's services is increasing, or are they increasing that demand? So let's start with
what were you talking about, Jessica, last year to your team? That Web Summit's BS?
We're going to start with the ones that have green arrows. There's a healthcare company, Harvey AI, and AnySphere. These are companies that pay money to OpenAI, but that OpenAI's venture arm has also invested in. So they're investing in these companies, and then the companies buy. That's
one of the few things I learned. I was only there for a week.
A bit of a loop. Now, they're not investing like the exact same amount of money. Probably they're investing less than the companies are paying, but that is an example of like a circular system.
Oh, the vibe code suckage, yeah.
Arrows, which is venture capital pointing out from NVIDIA.
Oh, by the way, my family can actually trace our roots through Portugal. We've traced it.
That venture capital investment
from the Spanish Inquisition, unfortunately. But we
the anti-bubble case. Then you do have to ask.
I do have roots going back to there a few hundred years ago.
To invest in these companies in order for them to buy their it's not like a quid pro quo here, but like, why can't the companies just get investment from elsewhere outside of NVIDIA to do those investments? It's a little weird, and I think that it makes sense that people are worried about it. Now, none of these arrows have dollar values on them.
Let me look at this for a second. All right, so you got OpenAI, AMD. Oh, good, they have AMD mentioned there. NVIDIA. The issue is that NVIDIA is the big boy when it comes to AI because a lot of things are CUDA optimized, whereas AMD, last I recall, is using OpenCL. Not everyone's optimized for AMD. Hopefully that'll start changing as well, where they're going to start being more vendor agnostic. And then Intel, their LLM AI processing is not really there much. But AMD has like AI optimized. They have like, what is the Ryzen AI chips or something like that? Like framework. I was talking to Darko earlier. He showed me this. Then of course you got Oracle over here. Hold on.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I'm not a fan of Oracle, if you can't tell. For many reasons. Then of course you got XAI, which is, you know...
Brother, What's...
But yeah, Mistral is an interesting LLM. Mistral actually runs really well on a CPU. By the way, if you just have a CPU-bound machine, LLM actually runs decently well. It's still not as fast as like running an NVIDIA GPU, but you can get away with it on a work computer with the LM Studio or Olama.
Which is a little bit frustrating for me, except for the most important one, the one that sort of created this whole conversation about round tripping, which is this one. NVIDIA has agreed to invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI, and that investment comes along with the purchase of chips. So to unlock more and more of that investment, they have to buy more and more of the chips. That's basically paying OpenAI to buy NVIDIA chips. Now, it's not like the exact price of the chips. It's less than the price of the chips, so basically about a quarter of the money that the chips cost is getting discounted off the price of the chips, and in exchange, and I am simplifying here, but in exchange for that 25% discount, NVIDIA is getting ownership shares in OpenAI. At the same time as that is happening, with this money going to OpenAI,
this BS about a 25% discount shows me they have too much of a margin.
Oracle, who's going to build the data centers and run the data centers, $300 billion on revenue of
Brazilian roots.
for a company that is
my roots are through Morocco.
And that everybody knows
but we
about,
trace back through Portugal
and that lots of people have
Spain.
found a hard time figuring out how it integrates well into businesses in a way that is worth spending a lot of money. $12 billion. They have these huge contracts with lots of companies, but still $12 billion is the amount of revenue they have. They're spending $300 billion on a service contract. That's this darker blue line, a service contract with Oracle. So NVIDIA invests in OpenAI. OpenAI signs a service contract with Oracle. Oracle, in order to build this data center,
this is a freaking house of cards.
Billions of dollars on chips. All these pink arrows going in.
So you know how people kept... I know I'm pausing a lot. I'm sorry. But you know how people kept saying, you know, like cryptocurrency is a Ponzi scheme? And like, no, it's not a Ponzi scheme. There are issues with it, but it's not a Ponzi. This is sounding more and more like a pyramid scheme, but I don't know if it's really a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi. But this is a whole house of cards here, the way he's describing it, because I never really thought about this, but if they're making only $12 billion, but they're spending $300 billion over here, and they're losing money, and then NVIDIA is trying to get shares out of OpenAI, this is like a giant house of cards that eventually this is going to pop. This is like an Enron. This is going to be like Enron. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. ENRON. Echo, November, Ringo, Oscar, November. Enron. That was the big thing. And .com. Like, go look that up. This is what it's reminding me of. Seriously. This is not sustainable.
To NVIDIA, these are all these companies buying chips directly from NVIDIA. So they're all paying money into NVIDIA, which is why they're the ones who are winning the most in this. And also there's this one arrow pointing out of NVIDIA to CoreWeave, which is a service agreement saying NVIDIA will lease its own chips that are being sold to CoreWeave. So CoreWeave is buying chips from NVIDIA, and then NVIDIA has said, we promise that we're going to pay you to use those chips once they're in your data center. And not only that,
wait, what?
They have promised that if CoreWeave, this data center company, if they don't get enough contracts to use all of the chips, NVIDIA will just take all of that excess processing power and pay for it. So they're guaranteeing the value of the chips to CoreWeave. Why would they be doing this if the demand for the chips is so high and the profit margin on the chips is so high? So the
Okay, so I'll give you my theory here, and I know I'm pausing a lot on this video. Okay, so you know about the gold rush in the 1800s. I think it was 1849. I think it was. The gold rush. Do you know who actually made the most money in the gold rush? Does anyone know? In the gold rush, it was the mining equipment suppliers that made the most amount of money. It wasn't any of the actual miners that made, like, they struck it rich. I mean, some of them maybe got lucky and struck it rich, but the people that overwhelmingly made the most amount of money during the gold rush were the people making the shovels and the mining equipment. NVIDIA has nothing to lose. They only have everything to gain. So even when this bubble pops, it'll be like, oh, well, we made a bunch of money. And, everything else is collapsing around us. NVIDIA is still going to be around. They're still going to be able to sell chips, because there's still a market there. I mean, I got two NVIDIA GPUs right here, a 3050 and a 3070, and I'm looking at upgrading the GPU eventually. But eventually, the enterprise side is not going to be having as much of the demand because it's only sustainable for so long.
Bubble argument that I have heard from analysts who are much smarter than me and know more about this is that the price keeps going up for these NVIDIA chips, and so they're like the demand is there. But the chip isn't the product. The AI service to consumers is the product.
They'll still service also with the chips.
Order of magnitude under the amount of money that is being spent just on hardware, not even including staff time and the power and the water and the buildings and all that stuff. The amount of money being made by AI companies is an order of magnitude lower than just the money that is going to NVIDIA every year. And by doing deals that basically give companies money to buy NVIDIA's chips, they are selling their chips at an effective discount. And yet, at every one of these steps of the process, as this money flows around, these companies get more highly valued. When Oracle signed this $300 billion
but it's only value on paper.
Their stock price,
it's not actually real value.
NVIDIA does venture
like when people say Elon Musk is the wealthiest person. Hey, look, talked about XAI.
Offering the chips at a discount. So once you parse this fairly information dense, though there could be more information on it and that would be good. But once you get your mind around this little graphic here, it doesn't seem like NVIDIA just thinks people are going to buy their chips at the prices they're selling them. NVIDIA seems to think it would be better for our share price if we found ways to artificially increase the demand for our chips, like by paying the people who buy our chips to buy our chips, or investing in companies that buy our chips so they can buy our chips. And NVIDIA has so much money that, what else are they going to do? Their price is so inflated. Their stock is worth so much, and they have so much money that they can subsidize the purchase of their own chips. And when they do that, the stock market rewards them. This money is just flowing around. And at the root of it is not the demand
That's insane.
for NVIDIA chips, because NVIDIA chips are not the product being sold. The product being sold is artificial intelligence systems. Look, it might someday be this big, but it is not anywhere close to that big right now. And it's not brand new. In order for it to be this big, it has to create so much value. And we have to create new systems for capturing that value. Besides just firing everyone and having computers do all the work.
Exactly.
Microsoft is the only major player on this graph that is buying NVIDIA chips that doesn't have a direct relationship. They do have this one little connection through Nebius, and I don't know what that is, where Microsoft is paying Nebius for a service while Nebius is getting investment from NVIDIA. My God, I don't know how big that is. You want to Google it with me? Oops, I don't want to show you all of my text messages. That was just my dad. It's probably okay. Don't read my text messages. Microsoft secures 100,000 NVIDIA GB300 chips via $33 billion deal. Okay, so it is big. That's actually huge. Oh my God. So Nebius is
goddamn, just give me $1 billion.
I have gotten this.
I'll donate 950 of it and live on the 50.
In there I bet you're interested in nanowalls. I thought I was.
I could probably live off the 10.
Nanowall. It's where you keep your Nana. She's in the wall. So it's getting 100,000 NVIDIA chips.
Nana's in the wall.
That NVIDIA has invested in.
That's how my house is haunted.
Chips. I don't know, you guys. Seems fine. I have seen the simplified version of this pitched around, which is like NVIDIA gives $100 billion to OpenAI, OpenAI gives $100 billion to Oracle, Oracle gives $100 billion to NVIDIA. It's not exactly like that. It does prop up the demand for NVIDIA chips by making it so that you're giving money to people in exchange for them, in some cases directly, in exchange for them buying NVIDIA chips. Or you're just investing in companies so that they can buy NVIDIA chips. It just seems messy. It seems like bubble mechanics to me, you guys. Though I am, again, just a guy. I don't know why. I gotta get back to talking about rare earths and fish. I gotta get back in my lane. That's what you want anyway. You don't want this. I should be talking about batteries and climate change and the moons of Saturn and my favorite fish. But instead, I looked at that figure for too long. Let's play connections. I'm worried because the last like 3 have been really easy. Swift Kite, those are birds. Robin is a bird. Oh, interesting. We've got like Batman Begins, Batman Forever, Batman Eternal, Batman Returns. Is that what it is? Is that Batman thing? We got Swift and Robin. Robin is also a Batman thing. There's gotta be, oh, Swallow. Great. Those are all birds. But Swift, Kite, and Swallow are much more similar to each other than Robin. Is there another bird like that? Robin is just a normal bird. Swift, Kites, and Swallows, very similar birds. I don't know why. Wow,
This is such an ADHD moment.
Okay, well, we've got that one now. This looks like it's going to be easy, too. Everlasting, forever, permanent, and eternal. Okay. Launches, institutes, pioneers, begins. And that leaves us with returns, ending, pioneers, and days? Returns, ending, pioneers, and days. Okay, well that does seem like what it is, and I don't mind doing it real fast. Kite, Swallow, Swift, Robin. Those are all birds, and they're the only birds here, so I feel like that's it. This is like creates and puts into the world, launches, institutes, pioneers, and begins. In addition to that,
what is he playing?
Go on forever, eternal, forever, permanent, and everlasting, which leaves us with, I think, days, returns, ending, and trails. Happy days, happy trails, happy returns, happy ending. Happy trails. That has 2 meanings now, but there is another one if you're just thinking of the one. And then these are all the same to me. Maybe the bird is second. Yeah, all right. And then I 50-50 chance here. Everlasting, institutes, launches, begins, and pioneers. That seems a little bit harder. That was easy. That was another easy one. All right. I'm feeling it.
Just not the name.
Another 1 of 5.
Sounds
okay,
addictive.
I don't know what's going on, you guys? They're taking it easy on us.
But yeah, that is a lot to process about the house of cards that is with the AI and LLMs right now, I would say. Okay, now we're gonna go on to the videos that I'm probably gonna hate Vampire for.
How much for the cookies?
I need about $3.50.
God damn it!
I ain't giving you $3.50. You get off my porch, monster.
That is actually a good use of AI. Okay, so what's this video you got here?
Convince my mom that a Plex or Jellyfin server is worth it over the 5 streaming subscriptions. Not talking to your mom, I gotta prep you for something first. And for those of you that aren't tracking, Plex and Jellyfin are some great beginner home server projects. It allows you to create a centralized Netflix basically for your own videos. It's becoming more popular with prices of subscriptions going through the roof. If anyone is remotely interested in getting into building a home server, that is in fact what I recommend doing.
I'll probably be building a Jellyfin server when I get the
before you start. If other family members, especially your mom, will be using this server, you gotta understand that now it becomes a production environment. People in your family will be depending on you to keep this up and running. If they don't have time or patience for your side project, this is something that they'll rely on. And even though you're offering it to them for free, they're gonna get angry if your service goes down. It's kind of like real world IT. You gotta schedule your maintenance downtimes. Plus, everyone that has access will now be requesting you download movies and shows for them. So maybe start thinking about your service level agreement for your turnaround times. Dude, I am warning you now.
Yeah, be very careful about Jellyfin and Plex servers for your family, because your family's gonna rely on that. And just like Netflix and Hulu, they're gonna expect it to work. They're gonna get very frustrated if there's an outage. The difference is that if Netflix or Hulu is out, all they can do is basically be old man or old woman yelling at cloud. There's not much that, they can do. But when you are responsible for it, they are gonna hound you. Anyone that does the IT for their family and is the IT guy for their family, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When are you going to come over and fix my computer? Because I can't do anything until you fix it. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's why if and when I do make a Jellyfin server, I'm only running it for myself and the people in my house. And if it's down for service, it's down for service and you're on your own. Now, I'm waiting until I can get, like, a dedicated box with a decent GPU and a decent amount of SSD space to go about, doing that. But that'll be some time, because I have other priorities. For now, it's cheaper for me to just get the multiple streaming services and deal with that for now. Eventually, I will build a rack server, probably with multiple spinning discs on there to hold multiple movies and stuff, with a little GPU for transcoding, but we'll cross that bridge later. Of course, it'll be running Linux, maybe FreeBSD, but we'll see. How do I update my computer? Yeah, that is, yeah, anyone who is the IT person for your family, you know exactly what pain I'm talking about. Okay, let's see, what is this?
Instagram's major update on content geared to teens. This is your brief but brief. Instagram will be limiting all users aged 13 to 17 to only content rated PG-13 and below.
I agree with
any
this.
Accounts or content that is 18 plus in nature, such as anything sexual, substance use, strong language, you get the deal. They shouldn't be able to see it, even if they followed such accounts prior or try to use the Explore, search, and
I actually like this.
It won't be there. This change was in response to significant legal and regulatory pressure. For instance, the U.S. sued their parent company, Meta, for knowingly making kids addicted and damaging their mental health. These laws by the UK and EU requires platforms to prove they prevent minors from being exposed to adult.
I don't like it for that reason.
Audits of their design and algorithm. And this new law by California requires for mental health risk warnings to be displayed.
I like that.
To limiting algorithms that develop addictive feeds for minors.
I like that too.
On top of filters, Instagram will be repurposing their AI to detect any photos, videos, and even whole accounts that are primarily 18 plus and label them as such. And it also helps that the Family Center now allows parents to utilize the limited content and more content feature that will affect the AI sensitivity to further filter adult
I like that
to their
feature.
children. Sure.
I like the ability to control the sensitivity.
But in lieu of the mental health crisis plaguing teens interacting with social media, it's a step in the right direction. Until next time.
Okay. That's interesting. So I actually do agree with, TikTok. Please put it on TikTok to keep the kids out of the chats. So here's the thing, though. Well, my content isn't really 18 plus, is it now? Since I stopped making my little risque jokes many years ago when I was 3D printing. So it shouldn't really affect me. Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of my content, I've noticed I have maybe young adults. They're still minors. But they're, like, about to graduate high school. They're thinking of career path. And I've actually come across a lot of people that said, hey, I started watching you in, like, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and now I'm, working in IT, or I'm going to college. I met quite a few of them, actually, at DEF CON. And not only does it make me feel old, but it makes me appreciate that there's these young, late teens that are finishing high school, and I'm actually influencing them into what they're going to do with their professional career. Yeah, one must see the filament. No, there were actually some adult toys and jokes that were there, like the clamps and other things. I'll just say that they're fun, but not for children. Oh, it's a popper. I love puppies. Aww. I remember when Barack just started to go down the stairs. Aww. The problem is, they never stay in that puppy phase that long. Aww. Yeah, I'm a sucker for dogs, if you can't tell. I miss that puppy stage and all the sleeping. Yeah, I know. You used to be so cute, goddammit. Now you're a big ugly bastard. Now, you be a good dog, or I'm gonna put you in Hassan Piker's house and he's gonna shock you. What's up, Bopper? Oh. What? 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 Yes. Oh. Do you need to go outside? Is that why you're bothering me? Outside? Outside? Is that what you need? Okay, we're going to take an ad break for a little second here. I'm going to let the dogs out, and we will be right back. Okay, we are back. What, puppers? Yeah, you're all wet now because it's raining, you dick. If you stop playing in the rain, maybe. Had to drag his ass back in. But speaking of dogs, y'all have paid attention to the, I don't know about if y'all have paid attention to the Hassan Piker drum. With, the shock collar and all that. It still blows my mind with all the stuff that he's said and done. That's what finally gets people to turn on him. Like, don't get me wrong. Still animal abuse. But yeah. Oh yeah, and then we still got to talk about the TwitchCon drama too. I don't know if y'all paid attention to what went on at TwitchCon, but Emaru got assaulted, and like Twitch security was extraordinarily bad. So originally the only punishment the guy got that assaulted her was a 30-day ban on Twitch. So you knew who the guy was, and you didn't actually, get the law involved. And they were going to probably sweep it under the rug if it wasn't for a fan in the line actually have recorded the entire thing on camera, and then that video got out. That was so effed. And here's the funny thing. Oh yeah! Let me see if I can pull that up. Let me see if I can pull the video up. Assaulted at Twitch. Now here's the funny thing. Yeah, there's a whole video she had about like 50 minutes about what happened at TwitchCon. I watched a good chunk of it. We're not gonna go through that. But yeah, you're seeing like people react. I don't know if anyone has the actual... yeah, they found the attacker. The attacker walked free. I don't have Twitter, so I don't really have the video. But yeah, you can see all these people are, talking about it. This was a whole thing. Let me see if we can, Oh yeah, here we are. Look, this is Aiden Ross responding to, reacting to it. Not really a fan of Aiden Ross, but as he has the video, we can at least...
I've seen this clip. Obviously, it's just like so fucking stupid. Like this person.
Okay, so let's just mute him so we can see the video. So you can actually see, I saw like the running across. 1 second. Hold on. So, see, the guy just basically tries to go assault her, and I think that's the security that came out. Yeah, there's a whole thing. Now, where the hell was security at TwitchCon? Now, here's the funny thing. So, as you know, I go to a few conferences a year, and I usually have to go on PTO because my job doesn't actually pay me to go to these. It's a whole other issue, which I eventually want to make a YouTube video on, about how companies focus too much on vendor training rather than sending your employees to conferences. That's where they actually learn, like DEF CON, GERCON, B-Sides, all that. Anyway, TwitchCon was a con I was thinking of going to, obviously, because I do streaming and all that, and it was going to be a networking thing and everything. But then I also had on the table GERCON because I only have a limited amount of PTO that I can do, paid time off. So one of my the final decision was it was GERCON or TwitchCon. Well, one of my buddies said when when it was time to GERCON, one of my buddies was volunteering there. He had a free ticket. Another one of my buddies said, "Hey, I already got a hotel room paid for, and there's an extra bed, and then you can drive up with me, and then we'll go." So it was like basically like, cool. All I have to do is pay for food. That was all I really had to pay for, and merch and stuff out there. I didn't really buy merch. Yeah, I didn't really buy anything. I bought drinks and food and stuff like that. But anyway, I think I made the better decision by going to GERCON than TwitchCon. I got, of course, a lot of amazing lessons, met some great people at GERCON. One day I'd like to at least try experiencing TwitchCon, but I'm not so sure I really want to. Like, maybe one day I'll just go, just to say I went once, but I don't think I'll ever actually, like, it's not something I'm, like, fully set on. Hey, thank you for the follow, Frozen Fusion. But yeah, that was this year's TwitchCon drama. There's been drama at every TwitchCon, and here's the funny thing. People say, like, DEF CON. I love going to DEF CON. DEF CON always has some drama, but it's never on the level of TwitchCon drama. It's like, oh, we had the DEF CON organization had this dispute with a vendor, or the badge maker, or, you know, there was this guy that got thrown out of DEF CON, and now he's suing for defamation, even though it was justified to throw him out. Or this past DEF CON, there was a MAGA troll that came in and was just starting crap and got thrown out, not because he's a MAGA troll, but because he was starting crap. You see what I'm saying? And like handing out flyers and all that was inappropriate, so he got tossed out. He wasn't even part of the DEF CON, from my understanding. He just came in and was trying to spread some BS and got thrown out. There's like that. DEF CON 31, there was a bomb scare. And the funny thing is, I finally actually got the full story of what happened to that bomb scare. So, what had happened was, one of the vendors apparently went to the DEF CON shoot at DEF CON 31 and fired a whole bunch of stuff, had explosives, all that at DEF CON shoot. Like, you can do it legally out there in Nevada. It's fun. I've shot tannerite out there. But anyway, some of that particulate happened to land on the boxes that they brought to DEF CON, and the boxes the vendor had, the dogs hit on the boxes. They you know, they had bomb sniffing dogs, and it hit. And when they did an x-ray of it, they just saw a box full of wires, and the dog had, you know, given the indicator that it was an explosive. Well, what had happened was a vendor with electronic stuff and went to DEF CON shoot, so it was a false positive. Like, that was one of the drama things that had happened at DEF CON. Like DEF CON, honestly, is filled with a bunch of professionals. That it's a much more chill vibe, whereas TwitchCon, it feels like it's, for the lack of a better verb, the degenerates. Because, like, the thing is, if you go to DEF CON, if you go to GurCon, if you go to B-Sides, Queen City Con, whatever cybersecurity conference you're thinking of, you're generally going to be surrounded by professionals or people who want to go into a professional field. So there's a certain level of professionalism and decorum we expect. It's not hoity-toity, you're going to have a button-down shirt kind of thing, like maybe some of the, like, RSA conferences, maybe. But, there's at least, like, yeah, you'll wear a funny t-shirt, we'll have funny jokes, and, you know, maybe drink a little bit, but, nobody does anything stupid. I mean, well, we do a lot of stupid things, but nothing, like, to the level of TwitchCon stupid. Our stupid is, like, just being goofy with your friends and stuff. Like, you know, one of my buddies, we mess with each other, he's married, and I will joke with him and say, so when are you telling your wife that you're leaving for me? And, you know, we joke with each other, like, the flirty stuff. He's straight. You know, it's just one of those funny things, the bro kind of humor things. Or, you know, you mess with your buddies, you do stupid jokes, you troll each other with wireless networks that are rickrolling people, you maybe set somebody's Meshtastic device to have the rickroll tone, you know, or little memes and stuff, and yeah, that's a totally different thing. But yeah, TwitchCon is always bad. Yeah, you're right, Vampire. There's always stuff that I hear, like so many fights with fans and streams fighting, trash talking each other. Yeah, it's like always like the lowest bar. Like the bar's in hell. And here's the thing. Never once have I really been in an altercation at any of these DEF CONs or anything like that. I've gotten into disagreements with people, but it's been like a polite disagreement. You know, we're disagreeing with each other. You know, the only time voices were raised is when we were inebriated. Like, we didn't mean to. It was just like, you're drunk that you can't control your voice kind of thing. But I feel like if I were to go to TwitchCon, I feel like I would need some kind of security or defense item. And to give you an idea of just like what the security issues are, they don't even allow you to have like backpacks in there. Whereas DEF CON, B-Sides, all that, you have backpacks. Everyone's wearing a backpack. You can go in like no problem. But TwitchCon like explicitly has a no backpack rule. Yeah, so it was one of those like, I don't know if I'd really be, you know, chill. What do you think about dual booting Linux Windows for a starter? Kind of afraid of changes. You can try it, but Windows at any given point will nuke the bootloader for your Linux box, and then Linux won't boot up. It'll be there, the data will be there, but Windows will just mess with it. And no, putting it on another disk isn't going to fix that. I tried that, and it nuked the bootloader on the Linux side. So you can try it. I wouldn't be too afraid of changes, really. You're going to be surprised when you actually start using Linux that it works. I actually have a video coming out. I have a video I just released earlier today on YouTube, if you want to go check it out. I released it at like 3 o'clock this afternoon, so a few hours ago, talking about the death of Windows 10, and maybe you should go try Linux. And the honest truth is, I used to dual boot on this machine over here. Here's the problem. You're actually going to realize you're in the Windows side of things so little because, one, rebooting the machine into Windows to play a game is always going to be this hassle. Because on Linux, it's easier to keep your system up to date. On Windows, if you're off of it for so long, then you're like, oh, now I got to go grab my new drivers, now I got to do the Windows updates and all of this stuff, and it's just going to be so much of an issue. Thumb drive, will that work with Fedora? Kind of nervous to make this full switch. You can put any of them on a live USB. That's not an issue. The issue is persistence. So you can create a persistent partition on a thumb drive, but the honest truth is when you're running it on a thumb drive, you're not really going to see how fast Linux really is because the limitation is the flash drive. Like, you're really not going to take full advantage of it until you do that. And I mean, you can dual boot it, you can try it out, but I'm going to tell you, if you have it on a prolonged period, it may not be today, it may not be next week, it may not be next month, it may not be next quarter, it may not be until next year. But one day a Windows update will come in and nuke your bootloader. And then you'll be like, why can't I boot it on my Linux side? And then you're going to have to reinstall Linux or spend a lot of time trying to rebuild the bootloader. Whereas I eventually spent 3 hours trying to figure that out, and eventually threw in the towel and just reinstalled my OS, and I was back up and running in like 30 minutes. So, don't be afraid of it, and you could also do virtual machines. But with virtual machines, you can't really do gaming and stuff inside of it all that well. But yeah, I'd say give it an honest fair shake. You'd be surprised how you end up actually liking it. Now, you can use a thumb drive to at least get a feel for it, but just remember, with a thumb drive, by default, it's not going to have persistence, so when you do reboot the machine, it's all bye-bye. It's going to go back to the way you had the flash drive. So, it's really not as scary as you think it is. Alright, let's see what videos we got left to react to. Did you get me a full video of puppy yawns? Oh, that's a tiny little guy. Where's Barack? I remember when Barack was that tiny. I remember when Ari was that tiny. Oh, little guy. Didn't even find his voice yet. What the hell was that? What the hell? That's a derpy yawn.
I can't really tell you what to do.
Oh. Oh, the little guy.
Little baby.
Barack, come here.
Did you get it?
Oh, you just poked yourself in the eye, dick. You used to be that tiny. You used to be that cute. He's a good boy. Best distro for cybersecurity newbie. Pick a distro. Most of them are pretty fine for it. I like Pop OS for my stuff, but they're all pretty much the same for the most part. There's very different bit of differences. Now, Fedora does have like the ability to like, I think there's some more protections around Yum or DNF package manager. Yo, Barack. Chev. Ari. I hear him coming. Sorry, Ari. Come here. Chev. 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 Lamala. Lamala. Good boy. Good boy. That's a good boy. Oh, I didn't tell you all the good news about Ari. So we got the test back for his tumor. It's benign. He's just got a fatty tumor. Apparently it happens when you get older dogs, so thank God, bullet dodged.
Turning a $5,000 digital whiteboard into a 200-pound meme, it was a perfect example of just one of the slimy tactics businesses use to prevent you from actually owning something, which is deactivating a product you purchased and thought you owned. A somehow perfectly legal practice that seems to
make sure his eye's okay.
By press or review sites, but only if there were a wiki that documented these anti-consumer practices to help inform people of how they're being exploited.
What?
Oh wait, there is! ConsumerRights.wiki is every scumbag company's nightmare. It's a living record of every anti-consumer decision that companies wish to bury. Like a car company locking horsepower behind a subscription, or a dishwasher that forces you to create an account just to wash your dishes? This wiki was created by my friend Louis Rossman and his nonprofit, Fulu Foundation, to encourage you to expose the anti-consumer, anti-privacy, anti-ownership bullshit that companies are getting away with by contributing to articles to help build up the archive. A process that's so easy, even the tiny raccoon-like brain of the greatest technician that's ever lived can do it. So if you or a loved one have been affected by enshittification, make an article on ConsumerRights.wiki and help us take back ownership. When Google decided to shut down its Jamboard.
See, I like Louis Rossman because he actually does stuff like this in his, spare time and everything like that. He's basically, running, he's on his, side quests now of his life. So yeah, okay. So we got this video over here. This is also going to be talking about, I think, the Free Software Foundation open source phone. So the Free Software Foundation, for those of you that are not aware, I'm going to bring this up just to prep it. Oh, wait, we're going to pull it up there and get that in the proper YouTube player. So the Free Software Foundation, for those of you not aware, is the foundation that was behind GNU, and if it wasn't for it, we wouldn't have a bunch of the open source stuff that we do today. You can check them out at, was it fsf.org? This was Richard Stallman's organization. So you can see they talk about, the licensing. They actually created the GNU public license that Linux uses and talks about different things. But you see, they're talking about the Libre phone project as well. So they're actually trying to make an open-sourced phone. So we're going to be talking about that in this video over here with Open Source News. Okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Linux and Open Source News Show. And this week we finally have some solid news for free and open source smartphones, because Graphene OS is not going to be Google Pixel exclusive anymore.
Hooray! Yeah, I already knew about this, but yay!
to other people. And we also have more details about the Libre phone project from the Free Software Foundation. We also have the end of life of Windows 10, which could be massive for Linux, and a bunch of other topics, including a potentially new x86 actor. Oh, and
wait,
we
what?
also have this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. It's your all-in-one platform to create, publish, and manage your website. Squarespace has
Okay, so I think we all are familiar with Squarespace. Decent host if you're needing to spin up a website, yada, yada, yada. No hate to him, but I want to get to the good stuff over here. Okay.
Just click the link in the description below and you'll get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. So let's begin with Graphene OS, and one of the biggest issues with that ROM is going to go away. That's their full dependency on the Google Pixel.
So I want to pause for a second. I'm so happy about this because I got into an argument with one of the devs over on Mastodon. Now, don't get me wrong. Graphene is a great project, but the devs can be kind of toxic. They're puritanical and they don't understand there's different approaches to different things. And what started the argument? I happened to mention Graphene OS in the same time, in the same post as mentioning I was waiting for this Purism Librem 5 for my testing. And they went on this whole diatribe hating on the Purism phone and all of that. And I kept going at them saying, I get that, but Graphene OS requires a Google Pixel. Not everyone's going to have access to a Google Pixel, so I'm looking at alternatives, and some people don't want to use Google Pixel because they want to de-Google entirely. And in order to buy a Google phone, you have to have what? A Google account. Even for the base Google phone. So, it was this whole thing, we went back and forth, and I was just, you know... that's why I've said, like, I have issues with the Graphene OS devs, not the project. The project's great. This is actually the same issue that Louis Rossman and other people have actually said, where the devs are just kind of a bit toxic. But anyway, this is finally fixing one of the main issues I had. I don't know why it took them this long to finally realize that, but let's actually see what's going to go on here.
Line of smartphones. If you don't know, Graphene OS is a de-Googled, secure and private Android ROM which only ran on Google Pixels because they felt this was the only phone they could get security patches from, but also probably because Google published most of the necessary blobs and firmware bits to make sure that those phones could be supported properly. Google actually published that alongside Android's code because they kind of wanted people to use Pixels as the test bed for the next release of Android.
And then I think they stopped doing that.
Pixels blobs will no longer be shared all that readily because Android moved to recommending a virtual Android phone for testing the code they publish instead. It seems that Graphene OS also has found another partner. They say it's a major OEM, but they do not name it, so we don't quite know what phone it's going to be yet, but we know that they will enable support for future versions of existing models. So it is someone already established and someone already selling devices, not a brand new unknown manufacturer. These devices will run with Snapdragon chips, will be priced similarly to Pixels, so fairly expensive, and they will be sold with Graphene
It could be nothing
pre-installed. Now, people are speculating it could be nothing phones because they are one of the few manufacturers that actually allow bootloader.
I think that'd actually be a good choice.
Nothing has been confirmed by anyone yet. Pixels will still be...
Nothing has been confirmed that nothing is using it. You know what this sounds like? Have you ever seen The Odyssey? Where, you know, he tells the Cyclops that his name is Nobody, pokes him in the eye, and then, when the other giants come around, or the Cyclops come around, he's like, who did this to you? And he said, nobody did it. This is what it's feeling like with that. Anyway.
Supported until they become end of life. Pixel 10 will also be supported, but the Graphene OS team says that they cannot guarantee that Pixel 11 will be, because it is getting harder to support these phones now with the changes Google made in how they publish.
Yeah,
Android
I was thinking of getting a Pixel 10, but because of Google's actions, I'm not really sold on it.
Second half of 2026 or maybe early 2027, so it's not for right now. Graphene OS seems to be one of the most liked Android ROMs out there. It seems to be pretty...
I'm curious for a second here. When is... Graphene OS gonna end of life on my Pixel 7a. Because that's kind of determining where my phone gets to be swapped on. Wait. Oh, end of life .date. I always forget, it's .date. This website is very useful. Let's see, operating systems. Wait, no. We're looking for devices. And Google Pixel. And the 7A. Okay. As long as it happens before May of 2028, I should be fine. And they're saying late 2026, early maybe 2027. That should be fine. Because I wasn't really sold on buying a Pixel 10 just yet. Because the Pixel 10 was the next phone I was looking at getting to upgrade my 7A. Maybe the 11. But that's good news. Because I want to stick with Graphene OS.
Pretty serious and pretty well supported, so it's nice. The issue was it only ran on Google Pixels, and for me that was a big blocker because I just don't like these phones. They have a terrible history of hardware failures and defects. The recent Pixel Fold seems to be a nightmare in terms of how long it will last in the future, because I
don't like foldable phones, period.
Resistance apparently, so not great.
The 7A's been solid for me.
Liked how those Pixel phones.
To be fair, I don't really use it as a daily phone, so
series of phone being supported.
I just carry it at cybersecurity conferences.
With newer models coming out, might reignite my liking or my love for Android ROMs, so that's cool. I'll be watching this space pretty closely. Now, still on smartphones, the Free Software Foundation gave more details on the Libre Phone project that they had already announced. They describe it as an effort to reverse engineer obstacles that prevent mobile phone freedom. And they say they want to provide full freedom to smartphones. So they hired Rob Savoy, a developer that works on OpenStreetMap and worked on a bunch of GNU tools, to lead the technical part of that project. And he started investigating the state of firmware and binary blobs. As the Free Software Foundation says, it will take time to do so, it's going to be a long game, but they basically want to close the last gaps between...
A long game. Have they deployed GNU Hurd yet? So GNU Hurd was supposed to be the kernel, the microkernel that Linux eventually took the place of. So GNU Hurd... So let's see. GNU Hurd. What happened to GNU Hurd? Is it usable now? Is it still under development? Lack of resources. People backed Linux. The GNU Hurd project. Yeah, they've been building this since like the 1980s. Like, no joke. Like, or 1990. Like, look at this. 35 years ago. They still haven't released a version here that can be compatible because it's a microkernel architecture, which is a lot more complex than the monolithic architecture that Linux has. But Linux ended up using the GNU environment of tools and just slotted into there, where GNU Hurd never really got to be built in time. But yeah, this is the same organization around that, so... Long development. 35 years, still not as stable.
In Android and software freedom. Android
is not an exokernel.
It tends to rely on a bunch of proprietary elements to actually work on real hardware, so I guess that's the part they want to fix. They say, for example, that Lineage adds a lot of proprietary binary modules, and they want to replace these with fully free software for at least one modern phone. This being the crux of the problem. You have to do this work for every device because they all rely on different firmware.
Okay.
So the first step is to find a phone with the least amount of problems and then to reverse engineer all the non-free software needed to build an Android-compatible OS that doesn't rely on any proprietary software.
I have a feeling it's going to be something like the Purism phone. Not that it's going to be the Purism phone. The reason why is the CPU and stuff is more open. The iMX8M Plus, but it's not that powerful of a CPU. but it's the same CPU in my little mini PC, but we shall see. The problem is the blobless CPUs are not very plentiful when it comes to the availability out there.
So that project is unfortunately far from what I had envisioned. No, don't get me wrong, those were my expectations. It's my fault for building this up in my head as a full Linux distro on any smartphone kind of project. But what
that's what I thought it would be.
I don't personally care much about. The firmware bits and binary blobs that run the software, I don't think those are what most people think about when they think about freeing the phone.
Yes, exactly.
The phone, you're not thinking about running an Android version with open source firmware bits. I don't think, at least that's what most people want. You're still going to build a de-Google.
Not really want, but they're not going to care.
Certified, so a lot of apps will not run. And if you are Google certified, then you haven't fixed the problem that Google apps that you will run on this phone are just not open source. So I don't really think that this is what most people were expecting.
I definitely wasn't expecting that.
I was expecting from this project. It's still cool. It's still a lot of work, but it's just going to be for one major phone. Will this effort be continued over time with newer phones being added and
That is the big question.
Is this just going to be a one-off and then completely forgotten? It doesn't fill me with confidence, and I will admit I was expecting a lot more than that. But that's on me, those were my expectations. Now there's apparently a non-AMD and non-Intel x86 corporate entity in the wild, as in a potential x86 CPU manufacturer is using codes that aren't normally used by Intel or AMD. Christian Ludloff, an expert on x86 who worked at Google, AMD, and other companies, posted a message to the Linux kernel mailing list relaying those operation codes, saying he was asked to do so by that new corporate entity. These operation codes are binary values that tell the CPU what it should accomplish, and so Christian is relaying these new codes being used by this new entity.
Wait, it's a new entity? Who's the new x86 vendor? Because, like, as far as I knew, VIA was the third CPU that did x86 CPUs. But they're not really all that well known. Like, you probably have never heard of VIA before. Yeah, VIA C3. This is a little bit older of a CPU. But like the VIA C7, just going through the successor. So yeah, you have the x86-64. This is a 64-bit VIA CPU that was released in 2008. VIA is the only company that I knew of that actually did x86 outside of Intel and AMD. And they're so rare to see that I don't think I've ever actually had my hands on one. I know of them. But yeah, so this is interesting that there's another vendor
to inform people involved in x86 development that those things are being used and of potential conflicts with existing codes or historical uses of those codes. In short, it means there's a potential new x86 actor, which some people speculate could be Xiaoxin, a Chinese manufacturer, although this doesn't explain why they wouldn't just communicate themselves instead of going through Christian Ludloff. What is certain is that there is a new manufacturer of x86 devices coming soon. Some people speculate it could be linked to emulation, but emulation doesn't require you to create new codes or to use older codes and repurpose them. You are trying to translate what the code wants the CPU to do into another CPU architecture, so you should not have to create new codes for Apple Rosetta or RISC-V emulation or whatever else. So it's probably not that. It could be a partnership between NVIDIA and Intel, resulting in something new being created, but again, this would probably have been announced through those companies instead.
Right.
So it's all a bit mysterious.
That's weird.
But in the end, if it results in more x86 devices, more competition, and maybe an evolution of the architecture, I think it's all good. Now, KDE celebrated their 29th birthday this week, which is a pretty big milestone.
KDE is almost 30.
And they're also launching their usual end-of-year funding campaign. They're looking at gathering 50,000 euros. This is more than what they asked for last year, because they were asking for 30,000, but it is less than what they actually got last year, which was 54,000. So they're asking for less than what they got last year. They're already at 12,000 euros at the time I'm recording this, and these donations obviously will help KDE be more sustainable, more independent. They don't flag those donations to specific projects. They're not here to fund a specific roadmap or specific work. It is to cover the paid developers, the infrastructure, basically to let KDE run properly and to let them keep working on that fantastic desktop. Now, personally, I did set up a...
At least they're more well-organized than the GNOME Foundation.
Their previous fundraiser, I also did the same for GNOME, because I love both projects and I want to support them both. If you have some cash lying around, you can make a one-time donation or set up a recurring one. I personally think these projects, KDE specifically, which is the one I use currently, really deserve that funding. But of course, it's up to you to decide if you use those and if you like them. Now, not exactly a Linux-related thing, but Windows 10 reached end of life this week after a decade. I already made a dedicated video on the channel explaining why it is such a big problem and why it is so different from the usual migration that we see from Windows. But the gist of it is, this time, Windows 10 is still 40% of the Windows market share. Usually, when a Windows system goes end of life, it is like 5, 10, maybe 15% of the market share. This is not the case.
Yeah, this is...
almost half of the Windows users...
This reminds me of when Windows XP got end of life.
The options that they have are just not good. You have 1 year of extended security updates and 3 years of Windows Defender updates, which are not enough to keep your system safe. By the way, Windows Defender is just not enough if you don't have system updates that fix flaws and vulnerabilities. So either use...
Not to mention, some antivirus providers are not supporting it past the support window, although I know CrowdStrike is supporting it past the extended window because of there's IoT versions and all that, but yeah.
Stick with that system and it becomes insecure in a year, and then you're just a risk for yourself and everyone around you. Or you move to Windows 11...
Did we learn nothing from WannaCry?
Pretty much a terrible operating system. It's riddled with ads, it's privacy invasive, and every major system update breaks your system. There are reports of that every single time Windows pushes an update, and it's not just 10 users, it's a lot of users being affected by that. And the final option is, your PC doesn't even run Windows 11 currently. You could bypass that, but most people will never know how to do so, and so you're buying a new computer, meaning you're just generating e-waste when your computer is perfectly capable.
That's the part that really pisses me off, is all the e-waste.
Make this transition much...
So, everyone, if you can't adopt a puppy from a pound, think of adopting an old, abandoned Windows 10 machine and put Linux on it.
Different from the usual Windows to Windows transition and the usual end of life that you would see, for example, on a Linux distro. If you want to learn more about why it is absolutely horrendous, check on the channel. The video before this one is a video about that same exact topic. But what's sure is that this is a major event. It is a great time to move to Linux. Linux has never been better, more compatible with more games, with more programs. I know
I made that same point in my Windows video.
Don't want to try that, or it's too complicated for them and they would much rather just buy a new PC. But if you are so inclined and you're still running Windows 10, do give a shot to Linux, although I'm probably preaching to the choir on this specific channel. Speaking of which, Linux Mint Debian Edition 7 has been released over the weekend. It's basically Linux Mint, but with Debian 13 as its base instead of Ubuntu 24.04. It has
I forgot they had a Debian base.
Cinnamon that Mint unveiled in their latest release, like fingerprint authentication, accent caller support, the new libadapter library, and the experimental Wayland session improvements. On top of that, LMDE 7 now supports OEM installs, it comes with the kernel 6.12 LTS, and of course all the Debian packages in Debian 13's repos, meaning the base is currently actually a bit newer than the one Linux Mint Classic uses, at least in some areas. You can of course upgrade in place from Linux Mint Debian Edition 6.
That's nice.
Just installing the Mint upgrade tool.
So I guess you're going from Debian 12 to Debian 13.
Obviously, do make some backups beforehand to be sure, and don't forget
always back up before upgrading.
Are no longer supported. You can run 32-bit apps on a 64-bit system, but you cannot run a pure 32-bit system.
Who runs pure 32-bit anymore?
Really, Ubuntu LMDE is here for you. I'm pretty sure at some point Linux Mint will decide to go with Debian Edition as their base, but they probably don't want to do that because right now Debian Edition is more current and newer than the Ubuntu base of the regular Mint, but when the next version of Linux Mint releases based on Ubuntu 26.04, it will absolutely overcome all those differences, and then the Debian Edition will stay very outdated for multiple years. So that's probably why they don't move to that right now, instead of just trying to patch up Ubuntu and make it into something they actually like.
Makes sense.
On Linux distros, it looks like Fedora 43 will be delayed in the long tradition of Fedora releases being pushed back a week or two. The original release date was planned for the 21st of October, but they decided it was a no-go because there are still
Microsoft tend to lose a lot of users. There's entire governments in Europe leaving the Linux
installer, with it being broken in certain languages.
Well, Microsoft is not the monopoly they once were, and Linux is a very viable system now. You've seen I can game and I can do almost all my work on Linux.
There are some input method issues in GNOME, some touchscreen related.
In fact, at work I use Windows Subsystem for Linux just to be able to do my work on Windows
as well. So the release of Fedora 43 is now pushed back to the 28th of October for now, and if these blockers cannot be addressed by then, they will move another week all the way down to November 11th, which seems to be the final deadline they're giving themselves. It is not a big deal. It's better to release something that is fully featured and fully fleshed out instead of releasing something half-baked.
That's one of my issues I have with Fedora, is they have this constant release cycle that's pretty rapid, whereas an LTS gives you breathing space.
People would just not read those notes and break their systems. It's better to delay and fix those issues.
Right.
Who really cannot
I totally agree with that point.
Can install a daily ISO if none of these issues affect them personally. GNOME removed 32-bit support from their Flatpak runtime alongside the release of GNOME 49 as part of their effort to drop 32-bit support in the future. They had an extension in their GNOME platform runtime, which is now removed. Apparently,
32-bit's starting to get ripped more and more out.
32-bit to go away. It's that they no longer have.
But you know, the Steam app itself is still in 32-bit.
Those were donated, and that donation was apparently pulled, so they had to scale back, and 32-bit support is the obvious candidate to be removed here. That 32-bit extension was apparently mostly meant to help with Wine 32-bit, which in itself will probably no longer be useful soon because Wine 11 should have solid 32-bit on 64-bit support anyway. Apparently, only 4 GNOME apps used that 32-bit support, 2 on FlatHub, 1 on FlatHub Beta, and 1 archived, so potentially no longer used or maintained.
Wow.
As GNOME says, you'll now be expected to
moved on
debug and fix issues yourself if you depend on a 32-bit build of GNOME or of GNOME libraries for running your apps. Or they say you can also decide to help upstream maintain this 32-bit part of GNOME if you have the time and you prefer. Now, this transition is impossible to avoid. At some point, it makes no sense to maintain an entire architecture for very few systems. There are still apps that depend on 32-bit, so obviously we cannot ditch it altogether, but 32-bit systems are just few and far between now, and it just doesn't make sense to invest all that time, all that effort, and maybe potentially all that money in maintaining this for much longer. Now, Mozilla is looking for beta testers for a built-in Firefox VPN service. They already have Mozilla VPN, which is an independent app that works as any other VPN.
I'm not sure how I feel about this.
A built-in VPN service inside of Firefox that you can turn on from the address bar in one click. It is,
to be fair, it's from Mozilla,
just selecting users
so it'll probably be more trustworthy than the Opera GX spyware bullshit.
Over the course of a few months, although, of course, you can decline that testing if you don't want that, if you get offered that testing. Now, it seems way too limited currently. It defaults you to servers from the country you're in, because they default you to the location that offers the best performance.
Right.
So you're not really going to use that to access content from streaming services, for example, that you wouldn't have access to in your own country.
Like Cloudflare firewire warp kind of deal.
Logs for 3 months. They say they don't log the websites that you visit or the contents of your communications, but they're still logging the fact that you enabled the VPN or not, how long you stayed, and the bandwidth you used, which is still a bit too much in my opinion.
I agree, that's a little bit too much. I understand it's for diagnostics and beta, but still.
Policy will evolve, but I personally don't really see the point. It's nice to have the convenience of a potentially free VPN accessible in one click, but you also have plenty of free VPNs out there that affect your entire system. And I'm afraid that some people will think that by enabling the Firefox VPN, their entire system is fully protected, which is not the case. You're just tunneling the traffic from the web browser, but everything else you're doing online outside of the web browser doesn't go through the VPN. So I'm still convinced that
this is like the whole
VPN,
Google incognito, people not understanding it's only private to the system, but not your exposure.
To this Firefox VPN, but hey, if it suits the needs of some users, if it stays free, if they remove the logs, if they let you pick locations, then why not? It's a handy feature to have in a pinch. Now this week we have another win for Germany because the state of Schleswig-Holstein has completed the first part of their transition to open source. Namely, their entire email system has been moved from Exchange and Outlook to Open Exchange. And
that's a huge lift!
30,000 employees now using free and open source software for their communication.
Damn!
40,000 mailboxes, 100 million emails and calendar events. Apparently, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were some
I was gonna say that's an ordeal.
Traffic, but apparently it's all solved now. They also started deploying LibreOffice last year, and as they say, they are pioneers, as in there is not much experience in transitioning this sort of systems on that scale. Although that's probably going to be true of every single migration, because virtually every infrastructure will have key differences in how things are set up, and thus won't be able to take advantage of a lot of the previous experience of other entities. They also say that they will be able to help other organizations do the same kind of migrations through their data and their monitoring, which is nice and fully in the spirit of open source. And hopefully, this migration serves as an example to other countries, other German states, other cities, whatever else, other entities, that yes, you can actually ditch Microsoft and it works. So hopefully this migration sticks, people enjoy it, people think it's more efficient, they save a lot of money, and so it can be used as a successful test case study for other countries. Hopefully France could learn a thing or two about that. But still on privacy, California is apparently getting their own privacy laws, which notably requires social media companies to make it very easy for users to entirely delete their accounts and all the personal data stored in that account as well.
California leading the way for privacy in the US.
No dark pattern
as usual
of deleting the account, and when they do so, everything that is stored on this person, on this social media website, must be deleted as well. California also passed a few more laws recently, notably one that allows Californians to delete all the data held by data brokers through a single interface, or at least it will allow that in August 2026, even though I don't know how that's really doable, how you can verify that they actually deleted the data, and how it would be limited to residents of California only. Another bill that was signed mandates that browsers include a setting to send an opt-out preference to websites, so these websites would no longer have the right to sell the data they collect.
Nice!
You have enabled,
I mean, technically it's already a thing, they just have to respect it on the website.
Opt-out that would work for all websites to tell them, stop selling my stuff. Again, I'm not sure how that's really enforceable and how they could limit that to the people living in California, but it's great stuff, and if it can be emulated in other states and other countries, that would be neat. I would love a one-time opt-out saying, you're not allowed to sell my data no matter what.
I would love that too.
It's a no-no. That would be absolutely
We need
fantastic.
GDPR in the USA. I've talked about this many times.
Sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. Now, Tuxedo is a company based in Germany, but they ship to most countries in the world, and what they ship is laptops and desktops.
I love my Tuxedo.
Linux pre-installed. They have a lot of form factors, a lot of options, a lot of keyboard layouts, a lot of hardware choices that you can place.
But seriously, Tuxedo makes nice laptops. I like their stuff.
It's the only stuff that I use. Everything you see, hear, or read, or watch from me is done on one of their laptops, the Infinity Book.
Yeah, I have a Tuxedo. This is my latest laptop.
That I do related to gaming on my own time is done on their Tuxedo Cube, which is a relatively small form factor PC.
This is the Tuxedo Stellaris Slim 16.
To make sure that
96 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabyte NVMe, Ryzen 7 8845HS, and an NVIDIA 4070.
Anyway, thank you all for watching or listening to this episode in the background. You know where all the usual YouTube niceties are. Please do click on all of that stuff. It really helps the channel. You also know where all the links to support this show are. You can actually get some daily news podcast episodes if you...
Yeah, that laptop I got is a beast. It's good for editing on the go. But most of the time I end up using it, I'm just laying in bed being lazy. Being honest. But it is a great laptop, that Tuxedo laptop. Alright, let's see. Because I originally bought it with the idea of I was going to go to DEF CON and do some editing on the go. I forgot I party and drink and all that too much when at nighttime, so I never get to do some editing. I still got to record and edit the DEF CON video that I wrote a script for, and it's been almost 2 months after the fact. I will get that to you. I'm going to record that this week. But back to reacting to the videos that my mods wanted me to see.
So Nintendo ain't getting no more money from me. You know, I was real excited for Pokemon ZA until the reviews came out. A large chunk of all those new Mega Evolutions they've been showing us, yeah, you gotta buy the DLC for it.
Boo!
And those super hype starter Megas that they were showing off, yeah, you gotta play ranked mode in order to get them.
What?
Which means you have to have Nintendo Online. Also, pretty sure that means you have to have the Switch too.
Boo!
All that in. See, it's what's a $400 console, it's a $70 game, it's $30 DLC, and $10. Oh, cool! $550! All so that you can run around one city, the buildings of which you can't even enter.
Wait, what?
But it's not even just Pokemon. Donkey Kong Bonanza's DLC was basically a roguelite that doesn't act like a roguelite. And just the way Nintendo's been acting with their lawsuits and patents lately, I think I'm just done. I'm tired.
I am tired of Nintendo too.
Finally. So, yeah, everything I'll be streaming from now on was going to be, it's just going to be on Steam. I don't think I'm going to run my Switch anymore. I mean, I will in my own time for my, own wants, because I got a couple games on there I still enjoy playing, but, yeah, I'm not going to stream it anymore.
Yeah. I've been done with Nintendo for a while with their greedy attitude when it comes to the whole aspects, especially what they did with Pal World and everything like that. That's why you haven't seen me even attempt to hook up a Nintendo console, even though I do have the capability. There's an HDMI cord here. We can do gaming. But, and I did have plans originally to eventually do some console gaming with a separate setup that I could do for streaming through consoles, but I kind of gave up on that because one, it's a little bit expensive to do that, and two, the only one I was actually really interested in doing was Nintendo, but Nintendo they've kind of been a dick. They've been a dick for a while. I love Legend of Zelda games, but I really do not like their attitude. They are the epitome of live long enough to become the villain. Play an Xbox game on stream. Do you hate me, Vampire? Not playing an Xbox game. That would require me to buy an Xbox, and that would require me to give money to Microsoft. And the only games that I really want to play are like the Halo series. But I refuse to get an Xbox just to play Halo 5. I think that's the only game in the collection I haven't played yet. It was a joke. Well, every joke is a kernel of truth. I know you don't like political stuff, but you can spin it about this guy used AI to find the information he found. I'm gonna have to look at what this is later. So what is this? The thing that you put up. Let's check what this is that Vampire put in. Okay, there's sheep. There's art. He's going hunting.
Over here! Look at all this food. Look at all these sheep.
What did you just send me, buddy?
I can't believe this cave has all this for us to keep.
I've gotta hand it to you both. This is quite the treat. There are enough sheep here to
Vampire, you got too much time on your hands to find shit like this.
It's almost too perfect.
The epic musical.
True. Why would the Lotus Eaters pass up on all this food?
Wait, is this the Odyssey, basically?
Hey there! We're just travelers. We come in peace.
It's that in a musical? Somebody had a lot of time on their hands when they made this.
My favorite sheep. What gives you the right to deal the pain so deep? Don't you know that pain you sow is pain you reap? Time to drink your blood over where you stand. Your life now is in my hand. Before I'm done, you will learn that it's not so fun to.
It feels like he auto-tuned this.
To my home to steal, but now you become my meal. A trade you see, take from you like.
Did he really go out of his way to make it a rhyme?
It's been a misunderstanding. We never came here to steal, but now that I see we've done some damage, maybe you and I can make a deal. I'll give you our finest treasure, so long as we live.
The whole story is a musical.
You can keep the world's best tasting wine.
Wine?
Have a drink, one sip and you'll understand the power that's in your hands.
Because the Odyssey itself was a long story.
Human flesh again, then we shall be on our way. No bloodshed in here today. A trade you see, gift from you and a gift from me.
And how did you stumble across this?
I'd like to thank you. Stranger, what's your name?
My name is Nobody. Nobody. Nobody.
Oh, this is fan art video.
Nobody.
Nobody. For your gift, I've won to reply.
I'm so glad we see eye to eye.
Yes, you shall be the final man to die.
Huh?
Watch out!
I forgot about that. But yeah. This was made 2 years ago. Man, that got like millions of views. The man couldn't resist. Yes, that's like I've heard the joke before. But yeah. We got through that list of things. So I do have some more hardware coming in, so we're going to be doing some tinkering. One, I do still have to set up the ham PC. That is actually still down here. I haven't even mounted it in the ham shack. Two, I gotta set up my Meshtastic solar node. I got the antenna in, so there's like a 31-inch antenna I'm gonna be attaching to it. It was raining today. I was planning to go install it, but Yeah, so I eventually got to update the firmware for that. I think it's still raining tomorrow. So tomorrow what we may end up doing is I'm going to see if I can update the firmware. We'll do that on stream tomorrow. And then, not sure. Let me check. I may have the rest of the hardware for my MQTT gateway for the other part of Meshtastic. For those of you not aware what that is the way that I can allow connectivity over internet chats to Meshtastic. Yeah, it looks like the antenna for it, the ground plane, the case. Yeah, all that should be here tomorrow, so we'll go through that tomorrow, start some setup for the Meshtastic side of things. So we'll have Meshtastic MQTT, the solar node. So the idea that we're gonna basically have what's up, what's up? Is it ALJ? ALJ? So I'm gonna basically tell you what the idea is with the MQTT gateway. We're gonna bring out the handy dandy draw.io because we are higher class around here, more professional. We don't go around using paint, unlike some wannabe cybersecurity professionals that claim to be professionals, and you know what I'm talking about. Said it right second time, G shit. Nice. Was it ALJ? I think it was? Okay, cool. So, this is the way that it's gonna actually work. Let's get some networking over here. Do they have, like, internet over here? It's a copier. Okay, so we're just gonna do it this way. We're gonna make this very simple. Alright, so we'll just say that this is my internet. LEJ. Okay, cool. So this is the internet connection over here. And then from there, we'll have this go in to my Raspberry Pi 4 over here. We're going to use this Raspberry Pi because I have a spare with that. That has a PoE hat over it, so it's going to be actually sending the power over PoE, or power over Ethernet. So the power is actually going to be sent from my rack downstairs. So the idea is it also take advantage of the UPS battery backup in the network rack if power ever goes out, to make sure that node is still getting internet connectivity, and at least so for like 40 or so minutes in case something happens. So the idea is from there, it's gonna connect over USB. Hold on. It's gonna connect over USB. Hold on. And it did it. Let's get another symbol over here. Wait, actually, we should make the cloud the internet. Okay. Make me so happy. I feel good. Alright, so, we've got the Raspberry Pi 4 over there. Let's, what shape should we go with? Let's go with a rhombus. Okay, so that is gonna go to a LilyGo T-beam, and that's gonna be connecting over USB. So it's going to go from the internet. It's going to be an internet gateway to basically connect to the LilyGo T-beam over here. And then from there, it can go in a couple of ways. There, let's make this easier. So we're going to designate a dotted line over here. Okay, so we're going to get a dotted line. and that's going to designate, air travel over there. So this is the SenseCap P1 solar node. And that's going to be outside, okay? So we're going to put that way over here. We'll move that line over there, okay? So we're going to put that way over there. So the idea is... Make that a little bit nicer. That was bothering me. So the idea is essentially... That is going to create my internet gateway over here. So any device that connects to this one can then get the ability to go through the MQTT gateway. So whatever channel I set, let's say to my local city, can then see the other chats. So imagine another person has another MQTT gateway on the same channel. We can now tunnel our connection over the internet on Meshtastic as if we're right there. So that solar node, essentially what its goal is going to be is, I could say I have to test the range for it, but let's say theoretically, somebody has their Meshtastic device over here. I should be able to reach maybe like 2 or 3 miles away. Laura in the city 2 to 3 miles. But if I were in country, I could probably get 10 miles, up to 10 miles, so 5 to 10 miles. Chief didn't like the musical. It was just, I'm not that kind of a musical person. It was alright, it was just different. Okay, so that is gonna be, a LoRa connection between these. So, it's gonna be roughly 915 megahertz. Now, the idea is, let's say... Hold on. How do I change the... There we go. Let's say... Other person. But then let's say... I'm in my house, okay? This LilyGo T-Beam will also be able to broadcast back and forth with these. But let's say I'm now down here. If you remember, the issue that I had down here was I barely got any signal. There is now the potential, since these also get to act as relay clients, if I bring my other Meshtastic down here, if I brought it down here, let's say I'm outside, I could easily get better range over this. Here, let's do the dash. So let's say I'm outside, chilling in my backyard, connecting to my node, and that can boost my range, because I'm already getting like maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles in the city with this, but that antenna is going to probably boost it even more. I'd actually say that probably can do 2 to 5, given what's going on. I'm gonna put that also like 20 feet in the air. You are gonna hate what I put in chat. But then the idea is, let's say I'm in the house now, I'm no longer in the backyard, and I'm closer to this. Then I can do that. Now the cool thing is, if it does happen to go that way, and let's say the other person has their connection going through my solar node, and then to there, and then hits me, that's only 2 hops. So I could theoretically, inside the house, no, move. Okay, so I could theoretically get another person with Meshtastic to connect and still see their connection. Now, the default way that Meshtastic works, you can actually do 3 hops. However, you can also configure it so there may be a 4th person. And I could have a 4th hop. And let's say they're over there. And this is all without internet. Okay? Now, if I configure that to allow 4 hops, that person, 1, 2, 3, 4. That 4th hop could then still access the MQTT gateway. But let's say, because there's a few other nodes around here. Let's say we don't have another person there, but instead we have a node. And that has a much further range. We theoretically could cover a good chunk of the city that way. And that's the beauty of Meshtastic, because you could have so many a lot of ability for you to communicate without the internet. Now, let's say the internet goes away. This chain here still will relay messages, because every single node on the network is also relaying messages to everyone else. So that's the beauty of Meshtastic. And that's what I'm building out. And that's like this little sense cap device over here, which I do use on my dog once in a while when we go for walks, so I can track him because it's got GPS in there. And I can see other people in the network. And I've looked at the map in my city, and there's some decent coverage. And I should be able, from what it looks like, to help cover a little corridor of gaps that I'm seeing. So that could be nice, because then I theoretically could connect different parts of the city, because I noticed there's like a dead area, kind of, where I was at. But yeah, this is kind of cool and interesting. And then what will be interesting is with that gateway, other people could access the internet. Now, the interesting thing I'm going to have to do with this, when I make that MQTT gateway, I'm going to have to create a whole other VLAN to isolate this internet traffic, because I don't want any of that traffic to mix in with my general network traffic. So whatever connection this ends up being on in production is going to end up having its own subnet and VLAN, and it's going to be firewalled from the rest of the network. That will be a speak until spoken to kind of network. And I think the only network that I will allow this to speak to from its side to initiate a contact is my logging server. Because eventually I will build my Grafana server and dump my data for logging and everything into there. So that should be really interesting to do. And again, that goes back into, I want to build a Grafana server to monitor everything on my network, so that way I could actually get some health stats on my network without actually having to log into the device. And that'll be interesting to show all of you about that, because essentially what I'm building out with Grafana is a SIM, a System Information Event Monitoring System. And the idea is eventually I want to feed all of the data from my systems going into there. So that way I can actually analyze data and have it act upon different things. So if I do detect a threat actor, I could have a series of actions initiate. Eventually I would like to get like CrowdStrike or something, but I'll probably end up in the meantime probably just doing WASA internally. On everything but my laptops, because I don't want to have it having network access. Well, I could have it dial back with TwinGate. So I'll have to play with that later on and see if I can have WASA feed that back in. But then if I do WASA, I still want to feed it into my Grafana, because I want to build a whole bunch of dashboards to have visibility into everything that's going on in the network. But I also want to build out an N8N server. I think I have a spare computer for that one. a little Think server mini computer that I just have to throw an SSD in. That should be perfect for an N8N server because I want to set up a model context protocol. And then eventually what I'm going to start doing is I am going to completely re-engineer my Twitch notification. So the Twitch notification that I have to Mastodon when it goes live is basically parsing Twitch's API to see when I'm live, and then post to Mastodon. I want to re-engineer that to also go to Blue Sky, but what I'd like it to do is read the headline, pipe it through an LLM, and this is where eventually I've been talking to Yitz, like, if we want to split the money on getting some NVIDIA Jetson or Orin or something like that, and then run an LLM locally. But I may, at least in the meantime, start with Google Gemini or something else to do CLI. But anyway, I want to feed the Twitch title through my LLM, and then if it actually, detects that I'm live within the time frame, to rebroadcast or anything, because I have it like check and it doesn't post another post for another 6 hours. And so if I happen to be live longer than 6 hours, it'll put another post out. I'm going to modify that logic. But that would be cool if the LLM could read the headline there and then make a customized, hey, I'm live message based on the context of what the headline is automatically to Blue Sky and Mastodon. I don't know if Threads has an API. I haven't really looked at it, but I could do that. And if you're wondering why I'm not doing it on Twitter, well, because Twitter charges for an API usage and my account on Twitter is still private, and I'm still not sure I'm going to return to Twitter. I don't really see myself deleting the account, but I don't see myself returning to it anytime soon. That and my Blue Sky and Mastodon accounts have much greater reach than my Twitter ever did in my entire time there. And in order to get automations working, I'd have to pay like $20 a month for my cross-poster tool I use, which is free for the usage I use right now. And I have to pay like $20 for the API usage on my own end. Well, they probably have the free API. They brought it back, but they killed my API usage like 3 times. My API token 3 times, which is why I gave up on Twitter when I was doing my learning project with API. And I went straight to Mastodon because I'm trying to learn how to deal with APIs and everything. And Twitter was being a dick. So I was like, look, I just need this to work so I can tinker with APIs and start learning how to do that with Python. This was like several years ago, obviously. So, that's why I primarily went to Mastodon, on top of the whole Elon BS going on with it. And Twitter has not really improved all that much. I've never really been much of a Twitter user. I am on Blue Sky, I am on Mastodon, I'm frequent on there. Threads is just cross-posted too, but Threads is basically just shouting into the void. You barely get any interaction there. It's only slightly better than Twitter in terms of the engagement that I get. But yeah, this could be fun to do this. So Twitter is back to being free-ish. Kind of. Let me see if I can pull up their API stuff. XAPI. Okay, let's see. XAPI pricing. Okay, so this is how ridiculous it gets. Alright. So you have a free post that allows you to do 100 posts a month to read, 500 posts a month to write, which that would be fine if I were, to return or anything like this. But look how ridiculous this is. The basic plan, and they say this is for hobbyists and prototypes, $200 a month. $200 freaking dollars a month for a hobbyist plan? Most hobbyist plans don't charge for their API. They just let you use it. And this is too restrictive. I thought it was $20 a month, but no, this is $200. And the cross-posting tool that I use requires me to pay $20 a month because they have to pay for the Twitter API. Yeah, this is ridiculous. The API on the free plan used to have this, if I recall that, closer to these limits. You had a lot more capability on the free API before. And look at that. You can only do one project and one app per project. Okay? But even then, you know, like, look, the basic, one project, 2 apps per project. But then Pro, look at this. 1 project, 3 apps per project. And then you have to pay for enterprise level to get, like, anything more capable. This is freaking ridiculous for anyone that wants to dev. Because you know what I have to do on Mastodon? Oh, just go into the API section of your account, generate token, give it the rights, and then boom, there's your API token. Oh, you want to make another one? Just generate another one. Blue Sky, kind of the same deal. But Blue Sky doesn't have an OAuth system yet. They've been talking about they're going to have that for a long time, but yeah. Dungeon Soup was going by a bingo list for the Barbarian. Wait, what? But yeah, $200 per month for the basic X plan. And you're wondering why a lot of people stop developing for Twitter? Because there's no way in hell people can have any useful projects. And here's the thing. To get full V2 endpoint access for all the things that you can do, you need to get the basic plan. So you don't even get full access. Dungeon Soup was going by a bingo list for the Barbarian. We can probably do that tomorrow. Put it in the review on stream. But yeah, like, let me put it this way. Say you're testing. You could run through that free tier very easily through testing. That is ridiculous. That is why I can't dev for Twitter anymore. That is why I don't really see myself returning. Because my cross-poster tool from Fedica would charge me $20 a month. Like, here, let me show you. So if you're wondering why, because I know a lot of people follow me on Mastodon and Blue Sky, and some follow me on Threads, how I do this, I use an app called Fedica. Alright? Very simple. I got Mastodon, Threads, PixelFed, and Blue Sky all integrated here. But you can also connect all these platforms here. Wait, can I add Twitter? I'll have to check that. They may have moved that to the free section. If so, I'll have to play with it and see if I can actually do that. But you can even do LinkedIn, Instagram, all that. But I know I would probably have to... Oh, I think it's that I have to... I don't know. I can do 9 accounts. But wait, they don't list Twitter on here. Yeah, I think it is that... Oh, they reduced it to $10 a month. Okay, that's not bad. But still, I'd have to pay $10 a month just to be able to put on Twitter. Okay? Oh, wait, that's if I'm billed annually. So if I'm monthly, it's $15. I just don't feel like doing that kind of an investment for that kind of thing. I don't know what other advantage this really gives me. Oh, here we go. The publish up to 100,000 followers, yada yada yada. That'll be nice if I ever hit that number on the non-TikTok accounts. Post to multiple social networks, unlimited. I can schedule up to 100 posts. I've never done more than 10, which is the max that I can do now. Unlimited drafts. What the hell is the AI optimizer and all that? But you get an engagement dashboard, all that kind of stuff, and then you get more analytics and everything. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a great platform I use to manage all my multi-posting and all that stuff. And the reason why I moved to it a while ago was because of Mastodon. Because when you move from Twitter to Mastodon, then the issue originally was, well, I gotta make sure my posts on Mastodon and Twitter are going to both audiences. Then Twitter started pulling their janky stuff, and then I started adding Blue Sky to the collection. And then I'm like, well, I want to make sure my Mastodon and Blue Sky posts are all, you know, syncing to each other. But, I'm not really sold on if I would return to Twitter. And if I did, I'm not sure I would put the app on my phone. Because Twitter is just a... Twitter broke your notification bot. Yeah, you remember that? The day when I didn't put a error handling in my code, and because I built it for Twitter and Mastodon, it looped through when Twitter yanked my API key, because they were doing that whole thing where they were changing over the API and being dicks about it, and they're like, oh, no one's going to get free API access anymore. And then it looped over and over, and I blasted 400 or so posts in a matter of like minutes, because it would like error out, redo Mastodon, error out, redo Mastodon, error out, redo Mastodon. And then I just pulled 800. Yeah. And that was the day I learned about error handling in your code. Like I said, that Twitch and Toot project, that was my learning. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have this code on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus in my network. I'll pull it up. I need to Dockerize this still, but it's this Python script over here. This was a learning project for me to learn how to handle APIs and deal with Python. I was teaching myself how to code a little bit. And I did not have error handling in there. Now, what I do need to do, because you can see there's Twitter in there, I am going to yank Twitter out when I do an update. And the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to reincorporate Doppler secrets management or something, because I don't want to do hard coding of secrets anymore. Because you can see I made this .ini template over here, which you had to put everything in. So I built in a secrets manager in there. I haven't fully tested this, but I want to actually use a secrets manager in there with Doppler and redo this whole thing. But I do know what I also want to do is get Amazon Q integrated into my Visual Studio. If you don't know what that is, I really like Amazon Q. It was really great. I gotta figure out how I can plug this in. So I plugged this into my Visual Studio Code at work, and I think it's not that expensive if I recall. I think it was like $20 a month. Yeah, they have a free tier, limited agentic. Yeah, it was about $20 a month. And you could have agentic requests in there. And the free version, you could do 1,000 lines of code per month. Extra lines of code available at $0.003. So 0.3 of a penny. I may do that, or YubiKey giveaway when. The other thing I was looking at was Claude Code. But I'd have to compare Amazon Q developer. that's the thing I'm going to have to debate, because I do want to have an AI assistant with my coding, because it makes me a lot faster in VS Code. I basically use it a lot at work. Well, Amazon Q is better because I was using AWS for work stuff. But, yeah, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out... Here we are. I'm looking at pricing and stuff like that. Well, this is a little bit older, because I think we're on Claude Sonnet 4.7 now. But yeah, I'm definitely have to look at Claude Code or something like that to, you know, figure that out. I am playing for GitHub Copilot. I'm gonna probably get rid of that. That's already in the budget, so it's not that much more. Claude Code. Well, what's the price of Claude Code, I guess, is the better question. I'm just curious. Okay, so the pricing of Claude... Okay. So, if... $20 billed monthly, so they're the same price. More usage, access Claude directly in your terminal. Ability to use Claude, integrate any context or tool, connect to Google Workspace. I don't need that. More usage. Define more usage. What are the usage limits? Usage limits, the managed capacity. If your conversations are relatively short, approximately 200 English sentences, assuming your sentences are around 15 to 20 words, and you can expect to send around 45 messages every 5 hours. Damn. And then you got the max plan usage, which is like 5 times more usage per session than Pro, but it's $100 a month. Yeah, so I'd have to see what the difference in pricing of those two agents is going to be. Yeah, that's where I think N8N and possibly hosting my own LLM is going to come into play. But we shall see. It's going to be interesting. I got to do some home lab overhauls and upgrades, and that'll be interesting as time comes. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But tomorrow we should have all my stuff for Meshtastic, so that should be fun to do. So yeah, and then maybe Wednesday I'll actually get all this stuff mounted up. We should have our MQTT gateway up, and a bunch of other stuff. We gotta test the antenna with the Nano VNA. So we'll have some fun stuff tomorrow to do. But for now, it is getting a little bit late. So I think I'm going to be calling it a night and go take my dogs out. And then tomorrow we'll also probably do some gaming on Linux as well. I still want to get through Borderlands. But thank you all for joining me. Make sure, if you haven't already, to follow me on all of my socials: Blue Sky, Mastodon, TikTok, Twitch, Kick, YouTube. I did have a YouTube video released earlier today, and I'm going to have more coming out. And then, of course, don't forget to join the Discord and the Matrix servers. The links are in bio. And stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch. Thank you all for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. And as always, happy hacking.